The following program does not have a normal intro because I was really too busy smoothing other things over to get it done. So, Ori? Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program. I'm your host, Joe Neerman, aka Good Lawgic. Now, I recognize that a lot of you in my viewing audience, my standard viewing audience, which I understand there's a little crossover filter there amongst, you're not a homogenous group. I get that. But many of you, like myself, perhaps missed a great deal of the January 6th Select Committee hearings. You might not have had a T vote. There could have been moments here or there which just somehow missed your your viewing schedule just didn't conform with that must-see TV. Now, obviously, I'm not talking to any of you who live in Washington, D.C., because there was required to watch it by law. But for those of you who are not in the cozy confines of the Beltway, you sort of might have missed some of it. In which case, it's very possible that you missed some critical, riveting testimony. So you sort of, I want to share one little bit of that with you, which is right here.
Now to what happened in the president's vehicle when the Secret Service told him he would not be going to the Capitol after his speech.
Tony proceeded to tell me that when the president got in the Beast, he was under the impression from Mr. Meadows that the off-the-record movement to the Capitol was still possible and likely to happen, but that Bobby had more information. So once the president had gotten into the vehicle with Bobby, he thought that they were going up to the Capitol, and when Bobby had relayed to him, we're not, you don't have the assets to do it, it's not secure, we're going back to the West Wing. The president had very strong, very angry response to that. Tony described him as being irate. The president said something to the effect of, I'm the effing president, take me up to the Capitol now. To which Bobby responded, sir, we have to go back to the West Wing. The president reached up towards the front of the vehicle to grab at the steering wheel. Mr. Engel grabbed his arm, said, sir, you need to take your hand off the steering wheel. We're going back to the West Wing. We're not going to the Capitol. Mr. Trump then used his free hand to lunge towards Bobby Engel. And when Mr. Renato had recounted this story to me, he had motioned towards his clavicles.
Wow. And apparently, out of an abundance of overcaution and concern that perhaps some of the viewing audience who are watching this testimony might not be able to just picture the entire scenario there that Cassidy Hutchinson just attested to under oath in front of the J6 committee hearing. So Liz Cheney and company were concerned that people would struggle to envision that entire scene. So they did a courtesy of creating a reenactment that I didn't see it, but apparently, according to reports, this is a reenactment that was shared by the J6 committee of that pivotal moment where Trump was wrestling control for his vehicle and shared it. So you probably missed this, so I'll share it with you, as well as we see Trump trying to gain control of the beast. Got this done. You got it done. You're gonna shake him. And with the Secret Service there. Oh, he's pounding on the window now, reaching for his throat, reaching for his throat. No. Whoa. You got this, Donald. You got this. There you go. Oh! Get him, Donald! Get him! Woo! Well, there you go. There you go. Great reenactment there of Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony that was provided by the J6 committee. So, it's phenomenal work there by the J6 committee. So, in case you couldn't picture what she was, so all of that obviously seemed incredibly believable. I mean, how could you not? You were able to even see it. You know, those of you who struggled to, to picture it, what Cassidy was describing there. So it came as a great shock to the world today. That report released by Georgian Republican House member Barry Loudermilk released his January 6th initial findings report, as reported by Gateway Pundit, where he says that Chairman Barry Loudermilk released his J6 initial findings report Monday, March 11th. Loudermilk was the Committee on House Administration Subcommittee for Oversight Chairman for nearly 2 years. Former Speaker Nancy Pelosi's J6 Select Committee promoted hearsay and cherry-picked information to promote its political goal to legislatively prosecute former President Donald Trump, said Chairman Loudermilk on Monday. Quote, "It was no surprise that the Select Committee's final effed up report focused primarily on former President Trump and his supporters, not the security failures and reforms needed to ensure the United States Capitol is safer today than in 2021. Quote, the American people deserve the entire truth about what caused the violent breach of the United States Capitol of January 6, 2021. It is unfortunate the Select Committee succumbed to their political inclinations and chased false narratives, not true narratives, false narratives, instead of providing the important work of a genuine investigation. In my committee's investigation is my objective to uncover the facts about January 6th without political bias or spin. My report today is just the beginning, Loudermilk concluded. He added, the report was filled with several nuggets of information. This is Loudermilk's. Several nuggets of information refuting Liz Cheney's notoriously dishonest and partisan report that Nancy Pelosi and Democrats released and would later be relied upon by the Colorado trial court in the efforts to remove Donald Trump under the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Representative Loudermilk discovered that the J6 committee hid exonerating evidence of President Trump's push for the National Guard at the U.S. Capitol on January 6. Trump's requests were rejected by Nancy Pelosi, D.C. Mayor Bowser, and the Capitol Police. Loudermilk also discovered that President Trump's motorcade driver blew up January 6, quote, superstar witness Cassidy Hutchinson, who lied through her teeth about Trump grabbing the steering wheel of the beast and assaulting a Secret Service agent. Her entire story was completely false, yet the mainstream media has never, ever corrected their reporting on this disgusting lie. And in the report, there's evidence that Fulton County, Georgia, Fani Willis met with the illicit committee, and she participated in numerous calls with the sham committee. The J6 committee even shared video recordings with Fani's office, but deleted the recordings to prevent Republican lawmakers from gaining access to it. This information was published on pages 49 and 50 of the report. From the report, Politico also reported that Fani Willis, yes, that Fani Willis, big fat Fani Willis, staff met with the Select Committee in April 2022 and participated in multiple phone calls with the Fulton County District Attorney's Office. The same video recordings that the Fulton County District Attorney requested were never archived by the Select Committee. Quote, although no additional communications between the Select Committee and the Fulton County District Attorney's Office were archived by the Select Committee, the prospect of the Select Committee sharing video recordings of witness interviews with Willis, but not this subcommittee, remains particularly concerning. Meaning that the Select Committee was more than happy to share their interviews with Fannie Willis's office and then torch them. Unbelievable. The subcommittee has also opened an investigation to the extent of the coordination between Willis and the Select Committee and is committed to uncovering answers to these questions. There is far more brewing for District Attorney Fannie Willis. I'm telling you right now, I think that her political career is in jeopardy. That's my own personal take. That's my own personal perspective. I think her career is in jeopardy. They attach a letter. And they attach. I'm not going to go through the entire initial findings of this report. We're not doing that. Definitely not doing that. Definitely not doing that. But I just thought you all should be aware. You should be left, a little bit more knowledgeable that apparently this testimony over here from Cassidy Hutchinson, who also claims to have been groped and all other sorts of things. Apparently she lied through her teeth. So there you go. Obviously, Merrick Garland's going to get all over prosecuting her for perjury. We're very confident that's going to happen. Anyhow, let me check up on you guys. Take the wheel or Trump will. Well done, Allegan. I like that. She had to send in 5-page corrections to testimony. I think it'd probably take more than 5 pages to correct that. Jackals, a terra argentum. I guess Trump has elastic arms like Stretch Armstrong then, because reaching into the driver's seat from the back of a limo requires Trump to be Stretch Armstrong. Also, why is the Secret Service disobeying a presidential order? Oh, I don't know. And I agree. 1-800-LAUGHABLE. Disinformation? Claims without evidence? Fanny can suck starter. According to some people, this is actually not opinion, but fact. But I personally would not know. Let me. Just wanted to get that out of the way early on before we get into quite an exchange that I had when I was covering. I went through on playback, and I'm going to share a link on Locals where you can actually check out my 2.5 hours that I spent reviewing the Robert Hur's testimony, select portions of his testimony, and I was skimming past people who I expect to just be crazy liars. And apparently one of the important testimonies that I missed came during questioning from Adam Schiff. Yes, that Adam Schiff. And apparently he was rather triggered. He was not happy. And when I saw this exchange, I stumbled on an article referencing, and I pulled it up. I was like, ooh, he angry. He angry. Oh, is he angry? So I thought, I don't want to spend a great deal of time. If you want to watch my coverage of it, you can come over to Locals and you can find a link there for playback. Not that it's there at the moment. It's not there at the moment, but I will put it up, God willing, after I finish the stream. But I do want you to watch this 5-minute exchange with me of Adam Schiff questioning Robert Hur. If you're confused about who Robert Hur is, he's the one who was a special prosecutor, who was special counsel looking into whether or not charges should be brought against Joseph R. Biden for his illicit retention, willful retention of classified documents in his home, in various warehouses, in his garage, in open boxes. And that Robert Hur suggested, he said, look, you're not going to be able to get him. I got to recommend against going after him because he's too senile. He's too old. He's too forgetful. And he's going to play out like a sympathetic old man, and you're not going to be able to get a conviction. So I'm recommending on that basis to say don't go after him, which, trust me, he was grilled by the GOP about this. The left spent the entire time trying to say, you see, there isn't enough evidence here to convict him beyond a reasonable doubt. And which Robert Hur kept saying, that's not what I said. That's not what I said. And in fact, when questioned by Kevin Kiley, he actually admitted that he said, when he was asked point blank, could a reasonable juror come to a conclusion that he's guilty? And he said, yes, one could. A reasonable juror could come that he's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Could a reasonable juror come to a conclusion that Biden is guilty of mishandling classified documents beyond a reasonable doubt? And he said, yes, one could. So there you go. There you go. Now, let's just check out Adam Schiff and why he's so angry. Why are you so mad, bro? Why are you so mad, bro?
A gentleman yields back. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Sir, I want to ask you about some of the differences between the facts involving President Biden and President Trump. But before I do,
they spend a great deal of their time deflecting. So, but what about Trump? Trump's being he was indicted. He's facing charges in Florida. We had to raid Mar-a-Lago because he's so terrible. So, a lot of deflection to Trump. But Trump.
I want to refer back to your opening statement in which you said that you did not disparage the president in your report. But of course, you did disparage the president.
And this is what the entire 5 minutes is about. How disparaging was he to Biden?
You disparaged him in terms you had to know would have a maximal political impact. You understood your report would be public, right?
I understood, based on comments that the Attorney General had made, that he had committed to make as much of my report public as consistent with legal policy and legal requirements.
And you could have chosen just to comment on the president's particular recall vis-a-vis a document or a set of documents, but you decided to go further and make a generalized statement about his memory, didn't you?
Congressman, I could have written my report theoretically in a way that omitted references to the president's memory, but that would have been an incomplete and improper report, and that it did not reflect my analysis.
That wasn't my question. Why'd you have to say that he's just generally senile? Why couldn't you just pretend that he was only senile on the pertinent facts? That's essentially what Schiff is looking for here. Why couldn't you just pretend that he wasn't senile all the time and just put in the report that he's only senile on these particular facts?
Analysis.
You could have written your report with comments about his specific recollection as to documents or a set of documents, but you chose a general pejorative reference to the president. You understood when you made that decision, didn't you, Mr. Hur, that you would ignite a political firestorm with that language, didn't you?
Congressman, politics played no part whatsoever in my investigative steps.
But you understood nevertheless,
the words
didn't you,
that I put in my report.
Mr. Hur, you cannot tell me you're so naive as to think your words would not have created a political firestorm. You understood that, didn't you, when you wrote those words, when you decided to include those words, when you decided to go beyond specific references to documents? You understood how they would be manipulated by my colleagues here on the GOP side of the aisle and by President Trump.
Manipulated. Sharing facts is manipulation. You see, to a guy who basically makes promises, I'm going to bring the whistleblower out here, and then never does. To the guy who goes on national TV over and over and over again saying, I personally have seen the documents that show Russian collusion. That guy is concerned that the GOP will take facts, actual facts that you're making public here, and manipulate them.
You understood that, did you not?
Congressman, what I understood is the regulations that govern my conduct as special counsel.
And those regulations
required me to write a confidential report for the Attorney General,
which you knew would not be confidential.
My decision, and that is what I did, Congressman. I followed the rules.
You knew it would not be confidential.
I followed them.
You knew it would not be confidential, didn't you?
Sir, the regulations required me to write a confidential report explaining my decision to the Attorney General.
Which you knew would be released.
It was up to the Attorney General to determine.
You understood it would be.
Merrick Garland's the one who released it. He's the one who released it because he stupidly thought that it made Biden look better. He's the one who released it.
Released,
report
did you
would
not?
be released consistent with
You-
DOJ policy.
You understood it
legal
would be
requirements.
released. You understood it would be released.
I
didn't you?
understood from the Attorney General's public comments that he would make as much of my report public as he could, consistent with legal requirements and DOJ
And you also
policy.
understand DOJ policy that you are to take care not to prejudice the interests of the subject of an investigation, right?
Prejudice his interests by sharing facts. Because the more facts that you have about Biden, the more prejudiced he is.
That is generally one of the interests that DOJ policy requires that prosecutors respect.
And it was your obligation to follow that policy in this report, was it not?
It was also my obligation to write a confidential report for the Attorney General explaining completely
But
my
what you
decision.
did write was deeply prejudicial to the interests of the president. You say it wasn't political, and yet you must have understood. You must have understood the impact of your words. You must have understood the impact of your decision to go beyond the specifics of a particular document, to go to the very general, to your own personal, prejudicial, subjective opinion of the president, one you knew would be amplified by his political opponent, one you knew that would influence a political campaign. You had to understand that. And you did it anyway. And you did it anyway. And let me just go to some of the differences here between the president's conduct and Mr. Trump's. In the superseding indictment,
Trump grabbed the wheel of the beast.
on page 3, it says that Mr. Trump suggested that his attorney falsely represent to the FBI and grand jury that he did not have documents called for by the grand jury subpoena.
In case you're wondering, Special Counsel Robert Hur said multitude of times prior to this that I have absolutely no knowledge about the charges brought against Trump. Yet the Democrats repeatedly, ad nauseum, kept going back and back and back and back and back over to Trump. But, what about, Mr. Cheese Puff over there, but, Orange Man bad, but.
You didn't find anything like that with respect to Mr. Biden, did you?
Congressman, I do not have the Trump indictment in front of me, but I need to address something that you said in your prior question. What you are suggesting is that I needed to provide a different version of my report that would be fit for public release.
Nice. Get him, Rob. Get him.
That is nowhere in the rules. I was to prepare a confidential report that was comprehensive and thorough of an
What is
explanation
in the
of my
rules,
decision as
Mr.
Attorney General.
Hur, what is in the rules is you don't gratuitously do things to prejudice the subject of an investigation when you're declining to prosecute. You don't.
It's not gratuitous because, and this is the thing that Adam Schiff doesn't like, it's that the reason he recommended against prosecuting Biden for these crimes is specifically because he anticipates that Biden will take the stand and look like a senile, doddering old man and draw sympathy. So not simply his inability to recollect the facts about these particular elements that are keeping him from being prosecuted. It's that in general, he's going to come up there looking like Tim Conway, shuffling up slowly, where Mrs. O'Wiggum could just like push him over. There's a flashback recall for those of you boomers out there. And then he's going to get up there with his stammering and his stuttering and talking about corn pop and forest fires and all sorts of other things when he's being asked questions about documents. And he's going to sit there and say, I think that we need to get, everyone should get ice cream because Rocky Road is actually is good for you. It's healthy. That's what he's basically. That's why he's not being prosecuted. But Adam Schiff wants to pretend. This is what he's playing on here. He's trying to pretend that Robert Hur doesn't have enough information because Biden's failure to remember kept him from having enough evidence, which is not at all what Robert Hur said. He didn't say there was lack of evidence because, frankly, what they keep focusing on is that one of the elements to this crime is intent. Intent has got to be willful retention of and possession of these documents in excess of what he's legally permitted to hold on to. So he basically was saying that we would struggle with that element of proving willful beyond a reasonable doubt because people would be sympathetic to him. Now, the GOP hit on Robert Hur pretty hard, saying, and Harriet Hageman, for example, from Wyoming, who replaced Liz Cheney, walloped her in ways that few incumbents have ever been walloped in a primary. And Harriet Hageman was giving blistering questions to Robert Hur and pointing out that it's not a matter of how much, when you try to figure out whether or not Biden's actions were willful, doesn't matter how old he is when he gets charged. It matters how much brain power he had at the time that he was committing the crime. Back in 2015, back when he was a senator. By way of example, if someone goes on a whole murder spree, and during that murder spree, what's that? I'll come back to that. And at the end of that murder spree, he ends up getting away with killing hundreds of people, and then goes dark, and he's found 50 years later and brought up on charges. There's no defense of, oh, he couldn't form intent. Look how old he is. So since he couldn't form intent to commit those murders, look at how he's a doddering old man. I mean, it's ridiculous that that's actually something that people that a special prosecutor or a special counsel would say would factor in here. It's not up to him to determine could they succeed in getting a conviction. It's a matter of were the elements of the crime met. And really, Hur should have recommended going forward with prosecution. That's what should have happened, but did not. And they're trying to basically paint this as, oh, you didn't charge him because you're missing one of the elements, that you didn't have willful because he wasn't remember enough for him to display willfulness. No, that wasn't it at all, because there's so much evidence without him opening his mouth. There's so much evidence that it was willful, because you can't have documents in 7 different locations, in your garage, in your freaking living room, and not be willful. It's not like General Milley walked into his house with the documents and left them there and he didn't know about it. It's not like Obama came there and said, "Oh, folks, I'm gonna drop these crates of confidential documents over here, but you hold on to them, Joe." No one thinks that. Everyone recognizes that he took them, kept them when he wasn't allowed to have them. So to say that there really wasn't willfully is actually a generous assessment in favor of Biden that Hur was making in this situation, for saying that we wouldn't be able to convince a jury because a jury will be sympathetic. Now, Schiff comes along, and what he basically is saying, well, why did you have to say he was senile in general? You could have just said he was forgetful about these facts. And he's like, I have to give a full report here. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about.
Gratuitously add language that you know will be useful in a political campaign. You were not born yesterday. You understood exactly what you were doing. It was a choice. You certainly didn't have to include that language.
You did.
You could have said vis-a-vis the documents that were found at the university.
But it wasn't just vis-a-vis, and it's not because of the vis-a-vis the documents. It's in general, he's doddering old man, and that's why he wasn't charged.
The president did not recall. There is nothing more common. You know this. I know this. There is nothing more common with a witness of any age when asked about events that are years old to say, I do not recall. Indeed, they're instructed by their attorney to do that if they have any question about it. You understood that. You made a choice. That was a political choice.
And by the way, what he just said there, I didn't even notice this when on the first watch through. I want you to hear this again.
Understood exactly what you were doing. It was a choice. You certainly didn't have to include that language. You could have said vis-a-vis the documents that were found at the university. The president did not recall. There is nothing more common. You know this. I know this. There is nothing more common with a witness of any age when asked about events that are years old to say, I do not recall. Indeed, they're instructed by their attorney to do that if they have any question about it. You understood that.
They're instructed by their attorney to do that? They're instructed by their attorney to do that. He finished off with, because you're not allowed to tell your client to pretend that he doesn't recall. I mean, I guess theoretically, if they have any sort of concerns that they don't recall accurately, they are supposed to, I would recommend a client saying, if you're not positive, don't guess and say you don't remember. That's true. But that has nothing to do with age. That has nothing to do with how long ago it was. It could be something that happened 2 weeks ago. But if you're asking about a particular detail that might not have caused attention, you can say that. When he's trying to say, what he basically was implying here is, I basically tell my clients, because he was an attorney, I tell my clients all the time, just say you don't remember, because it's impossible for you to be convicted of perjury. Pretty much. It's very hard to be convicted of perjury if you just say, I don't remember. You're not supposed to be guiding your clients to be doing that, to sort of pretend that they don't remember. Unbelievable. This guy's such a slimy guy.
That you made a choice. That was a political choice. It was the wrong choice. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Oh, we're going to get an...
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Arizona. Did special counsel wish to respond to that final question?
Oh, yes, he does. And he will.
Yes, Congressman, what you are suggesting is that I shape, sanitize, omit portions of my reasoning and explanation of the Attorney General for political
reasoning, meaning it was part of his reasoning.
That was a political choice. It was the wrong choice. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Arizona. Did special counsel wish to respond to that final question?
Yes, Congressman, what you are suggesting is that I shape, sanitize, omit portions of my reasoning and explanation of the Attorney General for political reasons.
No, I suggest that you not shape your report for political reasons, which is what you did.
That did not happen, Congressman. That did not happen.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Arizona is recognized for.
That didn't go the way Schiff for Brains actually expected it to go. And yes, I did say Schiff for Brains. So let me cover this here. Thank you for dropping the bondage. J.H. Schwalbach. At the end of the Spaceballs movie, Mel Brooks had a post-trailer announcing the movie Jews in Space. No recollection of that. And he did not make the movie because the Israeli government CIA said it was close to reality and exposed government secrets. Is that true? One of two. I'll come back to you then. But thank you for the generous. I'm going to wait for the second one. You say that's one of two. I assume there's a second one. There's a second. I don't know. Did I miss it? That was at 10:43. Did I miss the second one? Was it just a regular comment? Which may have been. I feel bad missing it. Let me scroll up and see if I missed it. I may have. 10:43. Schwalbach. J.S. Schwalbach. No, I don't see a second one from you yet. All right, I'll come back to you. Brother. Wellesley says election for him in primary doesn't look good for him getting into the Feinstein seat. He is running for Senate now, Schiff. And in the primaries, apparently he helped fund Steve Garvey, as in legendary first baseman of the Los Angeles Dodgers, Steve Garvey, to overcome in the primary balloting, to overcome another Democrat, which this made Democrats like, I don't know, the Young Turks infuriated that for his own personal ability to better enhance his chances for winning, he felt like in California, Republican versus Democrat, for senator, Democrat's going to win every time. But if it's Democrat versus Democrat, might not be so good. So I'm better off because it was a top two vote getters were the ones who were going to make it onto the ballot. So I'm better off if Steve Garvey, the Republican, ends up beating out the other Democrat and comes in second ahead of the other Democrat. So apparently he actually ran ads for Steve Garvey and able to ensure, because he knew he was going to finish first, in order to ensure and Steve Garvey would finish second. This infuriated the Democrats. And apparently Steve Garvey did a lot better than people anticipated he would do. And who knows, maybe Steve Garvey ends up pulling it out. I'll tell you this much. Eastern California is a lot redder then people tend to recognize. Now, there are all sorts of questions as to how they run their elections and the millions of ballots that just seem to be just flooding the entire state. All sorts of questions about that. But yeah, we can always hope that somehow Steve manages to pull it out. I think he's probably a 20-1 long shot, but who knows? I'd love to see him. I'd love to see him take it. Jenny, thank you so much for your support. And she's correct. Please do not forget to like the stream. I'd be much obliged if you just click that little button and hit subscribe while you're there. I'm actually getting close to 94,000. Marching my way up toward 100,000. The slowest grind over the last, trust me, the last 12,000 has been the slowest grind in the world. Oh my God. Been over 88,000 for I don't even know how long. I do expect to cross that threshold this month, though. I expect to cross 100,000. I'm predicting that by April Fool's, I will be over 100,000. That's my prediction. By April 1st, I'll be over 100,000. So if you sign up now, you'll be able to say, hey, I was one of those first 100,000. That's pretty cool, right? Please do a review of the interview transcripts. I don't know that I can do that. That sounds like a project. When you say the interview transcripts, you're talking about from J6. That sounds like it can take me months. And I appreciate the 20, but that sounds like it take a really long time. I don't know. I'll see. I'll try to glance through and see if there's anything that is particularly noteworthy. I'll try to catch and call to your attention. Tammy Time, thank you so much for the 20. It's very, very kind of you to show your support. I really appreciate that. Stephen Evans says, I wonder if Robert Hur has any thoughts on the inevitable capsizing of Guam. That was the member of the House sitting to his left, Johnson, who once speculated that he had concerns that Guam, because it's only 12 miles wide and much longer, that the island might tip over if there was too much weight on one side of the island. So apparently not realizing how islands work. But they might capsize. That Guam might capsize if they built up if they put up too much infrastructure on one side of Guam. That was just hilarious. And people think AOC is the dumbest. They lock up conservatives if they don't remember. That is true. If you don't remember, if you start saying I don't remember, how would that play on? How would that play on the stand? How awesome would it be if Garvey rolls Schiff and makes the Senate? It would be amazing, amazing, amazing. Look, you never know. Who the hell knows what's going to happen in November? No way to tell. No way to tell. Oh, dang it. I did something wrong. Let me fix that. I don't know if there's going to be a follow-up here. I will tell you this. Yeah, you're asking me, and you're saying the Israeli government CIA said it was too close to reality, having Jews in space. I don't know. I heard, look, MTG brought up the Jewish space laser things. I get teased all the time about Jewish space lasers. And I'll tell you right now, no one told me about Jewish space lasers. I would think that if we're looking at technological weaponry across the globe, chances are very, very high. If you ask me to just speculate, I would be surprised. Nay, I'll go one step further. I'd be disappointed in the state of Israel if they're not in the top 5 in the world in their technological advancements. And I think America probably helps them as a friend. But I think they're probably top 5 in the world as far as their technological developments of their military. So, yeah. Does that include like being in space? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. Would not be surprised. You kind of wonder when they would have been, like, how they could have hidden it, because it's not like it's a really big country. It's not that big a country. The entire country is like the state of New Jersey. So if they fired off something into space and they did it like in Israel, it'd be really hard. It's not like they got the whole Yucca Flats kind of, massive zones of area where they can just, sort of test nuclear weaponry or fire off rockets if they were so inclined. that no one would ever see it. It's a pretty small country, geographically. Pretty small country. So, but would I be surprised if they had the technology? No. No, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Melanie, interview transcripts between Biden and Hur. They sound confusing. That's so that. Thank you again for another 20. That's something I can try to get my hands on. I need to get it. I need to find Biden Hur. They were dropped earlier today. They reached the GOP. That I'll try to look through. I think that's a good call. I think that's a good call, Melanie. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's good. That's not a bad call. I'll try to look through them. Thank you. All right. So there you go. That was Adam Schiff. And I wanted to take a look with you at the interview between Tucker Carlson and Chris Cuomo. And I thought that I watched the first 30 minutes of this, and I was like, you know what? This is a really interesting conversation. One of the things to me that's very interesting about Tucker and Chris Cuomo, you can bash on Chris Cuomo all you want, and he's earned every drop of it. And one of the things that comes up during the course of this interview is just how mercilessly Tucker has skewered Chris Cuomo for years, decimating him. And Tucker gets very apologetic about it while laughing about it, but sort of like very apologetic about it. And the interesting thing about it is, whatever you want to say about Fredo, all the critique you can drop on him, which he's well earned. And in fact, he continues to earn to this day. I was watching a video just before I started from the PBD podcast where Candace Owens was destroying Chris Cuomo for his critique of Tucker Carlson interviewing Putin, and really doing an effective job on it. So the interesting thing about Chris, though, is he really was the most popular person on CNN, or thereabouts. He was one of the top handful when he got let go. So he was considered a hero of the left when he was let go. And we all know Tucker Carlson was a hero of the right when he was let go. So there's an interesting dynamic there. Now, I think it's funny to see how much success Tucker continues to have in the wake of being let go by Fox, compared to the dismal ratings that Chris Cuomo generates in the wake of his removal from CNN. So, and I think that is a reflection of the relative talent of the two individuals and the confidence that their audiences have. And then part of what Chris Cuomo was removed for was allegations of him being a sleazeball. So that certainly didn't help, where Tucker was not saddled by those allegations. But I think that they're in certain ways, they're opposite faces of the same coin. Meaning people who made it big, pitching to one camp, hated by the other camp, were pretty reliable ratings cash cows for their employers, and then severed and sent out into the great beyond to go off on their own. So I think that it's an interesting dynamic, which perhaps enabled them to come together a little quicker. In fact, that sort of comes up early on in the interview here. So without further ado, some of the conversation here I thought was really interesting, and we'll just watch some of this together.
And you're one of the few people who kind of understand. And both of us spent decades in one world, were exiled from it. And I think the question is, like, what if we learn from this?
Is that too fast? If I give you words, I really would love to play this at 1 1/4 speed. Please tell me if this is too fast.
You first.
I'm still trying to figure it out. And I knew it was important to reach out when you were going through your exit.
Y'all saying yes. All right. I'll slow it back down. I put it at 1 1/4. But
Let's call it. And because I knew the pain of it and I knew the challenge of it. And everything is different, but I do believe that one of the lessons I've learned is you have to think about how other people are being affected by situations, especially once you have pain in your own life. And it doesn't matter what you agree with, what you like, what
Took
you
him being removed from his position to actually like learn to be considerate. Okay.
don't like. It's all gotten so far removed from humanity that the idea that I don't like that Tucker Carlson takes a bite out of my ass on his show on a regular
I think you
basis.
had a good reason not to like me. I think that would be fair.
But that means that this is not somebody who you should care about as a human being. And
I think Tucker
I
coined the
feel
nickname
like
Fredo, didn't he?
our culture isn't working anymore, that
And I'll try to check
everybody
this out,
retreats with their own. And as a result, everybody is against one another for the same kinds of reasons. And it's not working. And if it's not working, then why aren't we trying something different? Why wouldn't I?
Oh, I forgot to get this. Real Patriots Party said, Joe, for God's sakes, I've been hosting your playback content on Rumble since the first day. Here is the latest Boomer vid. And he gives a link. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That's to make it easier for people to catch late my playback stuff. I'll probably provide links to that. Thank you very much, brother. I appreciate you. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything else here, because that is possible. I did miss a few. Where are you? Fo Peasy says, thank for enabling the DVR function. Back to the tunnels I go. Okay, you're welcome. I don't know what I did, but Dana says, we had one call in and 2 no call, no show on third shift taking crew. We need some help. Okay.
Out to somebody who has a family and who has a following and is dealing with a hard time, to see if I can help and see what's going on in their life and what they're about. And I was concerned about calling you at first because I thought you might be thinking that this is like a spite phone call or something, you know what I mean? Or it'd be like, why are you calling me? What do you want to gloat or something? You know, I didn't want to make anything worse for you. But as you say, there's such tremendous power in conversation.
Yes.
We only know what we're told about people and the snippets that people want us to see and the context. Now, I'm not saying that, like, you know, you're one benefit of context away from never of saying anything that I don't think you should say. But what is lost by doing this? What is lost by this? How can this not be helpful?
True. That's
to
true.
sit across from somebody and talk to them instead of about them.
I'll tell you this. The only thing that is lost potentially, I noticed that when I bring people on here from the left and debate with them or discuss things with them, that there will be, my audience will sometimes get mad at me for that. Like, they'll be like, I don't want to hear these opinions or whatever. And I'm like, no, we need to hear them. I want to hear these from these folks. I want to hear the other side. So if it, you know, that's basically the only downside is sometimes your audience gets annoyed with you. I was thinking about playing this. It's a 7-minute interview. I saw it. I appreciate it. It was held by a local radio station. I think Shelley TV or something like that. It was a 7-minute interview. It wasn't really any talk related to the ongoing motion with McAfee. So, yeah. Yeah. But I might pull it up. I saw it only had like 55 views. I found it. I found that on YouTube. Maybe I'll pull it up tomorrow. We'll see. Maybe I'll share it on Locals. I gotta figure it out. Congrats, Joe, again. More subs on the non-cult Scientology channel. Huge milestone. When does the following get our religion tax exemption? I'm working on the 501c3c status. We're working on it. It's in progress. Don't rely on it. Don't rely on it.
Of course, I couldn't agree with you more, which is why we're here. And I think both of us have tried to talk directly with legitimately on some things, but because it's a really useful and important experience. So why doesn't it happen? It does make you kind of wonder, maybe there are forces trying to prevent those conversations.
It's very hard to get lefties on.
I call it the game. You and I
don't think it's the game.
Have been in the game for a long time.
Nope.
And whether you like it or not, whether you mean it or not, you wind up playing the game. You can, especially with the platform that you had, you wind up essentially picking sides. And you wind up having agendas either that present themselves to you or are foisted upon you. But either way, you wind up in the same place. And in doing that, it becomes habit. It's what people are celebrating around you. It's what you see around you. People start to come after you. Now you have a natural enemy. These people
It's very hard to get leftists on. It's very hard to get them on. That's why.
I'm resistant to them because they're attacking what I'm saying and they're getting it wrong or they're getting it right and I still don't like it. That's the culture. And that's what the media enforces. We are not supposed to be doing this. I am doing something bad right now, not just wrong.
Yeah.
This is bad.
Your platform.
I am morally bad. I am giving a platform. That's the new word for censoring, right? I'm giving Tucker Carlson a platform. I'm talking to him about who he is and what he's about and why he does what he does. Why he's bad. And that's the end of the analysis. But look where it's.
He was fired. The reasons given for him being fired was a lack of integrity in the fact that he was helping his brother when his brother was facing sexual allegations and giving him advice. And they talk a little bit, and Tucker's going to talk a little bit about that.
Gotten us. Nobody talks to each other anymore. You've got politicians.
So they felt like, you're supposed to be independent, and here it is, you're giving consult to someone to your brother, and you're putting your family over your dedication toward journalism.
Resigning because they say, yeah, it turns out nobody really wants us to do anything here but fight, and I've kind of had enough. I'm going to go. I mean, whoever thought we would see any of this, and yet nobody's trying to.
I think he was really fired because he looks too much like Andrew Cuomo. And there was so much anger toward Andrew Cuomo that was ginned up by the left. Because, let's face it, the real reason Andrew Cuomo should have been thrown out from the governor's office is because he killed thousands of people with his drastic and foreseeably foolish policies during the 2020 issues, where he basically said, I don't care if they're healthy yet, throw them back in the nursing homes. And he was one of 5 governors who did it. And that led to thousands of deaths unnecessarily, because he basically sent disease to go rocketing through nursing homes, so that all these people who were most susceptible to have lethal damage from it were now exposed to people, because they were thrown out of hospitals because people who caught the infection were thrown out of hospitals and sent back to homes before they were no longer contagious. So, I mean, that happened in New York, that happened in New Jersey. Phil Murphy killed thousands of people. That's the reason Andrew Cuomo should have been fired. But in the eyes of the left, which is obviously his political strong base was with the left, killing thousands of people is not nearly as bad as ogling a dozen women in the course of your employment. So while I would admit that ogling and the way you deal with them in a lecherous sort of way is gross and disgusting and distasteful and ew, but at the same time, not nearly as bad as killing those dozen people or thousands more. But even when the left does something right, they do it for completely the wrong reasons. Now, Andrew Cuomo happens to look a lot like Chris Cuomo, and their names sound, well, their last name is the same. So I actually think that while they said that, you shouldn't have been helping your brother, I think that they're saying you shouldn't have been helping him when he's facing this, unforgivable sin in the eyes of the left, and that they didn't like that. I don't think it has anything to do with journalistic integrity. I think that they just didn't. They felt that there was guilt by association, that Andrew Cuomo is now considered public enemy number 1, and that makes Chris 1A. So I think he got sunk by his brother, not for helping his brother, but really because he's the same last name and kind of looks a lot like him.
Remedy it.
I think it's really hard. And the one way in which I really sympathize with you, and I said this in public at the time, is that you were attacked, and I don't know the details. I'm not going to ask you to reveal them.
Gavin Newsom too.
Felt like you were fired.
Gretchen Whitmer.
Because you remained close to your brother, who was governor of New York.
Democrat governor.
And he was going through a bunch of stuff. He left office, and you were still talking to him, and you weren't allowed to. And my take on it from a distance, knowing neither you nor your brother, was you got to stick with your brother. It's your brother. And that obligation supersedes all others, because that's your family. That's like a moral obligation. If my brother committed triple murder, I'd be against triple murder, but I would never abandon my brother because he's my brother. And so anybody who says your obligation to me overrides your obligation to your own brother, that person's evil. That's how I feel about it. And I felt like they were doing that to you. That was just my perspective from watching.
People feel differently about family, which
We can
was
only
somewhat
hope.
of a new concept for me.
We
I
can
don't.
only
In what way?
We gotta get a majority. We need to get a majority in the House. So, yeah.
I had a big
in the Senate, obviously.
shot media person say to me in an interview on their platform, I would not have helped my brother. Not if it would have conflicted with my ethical obligations as a journalist.
Or your career ambitions is what they're really saying.
Well,
it's disgusting.
Either way. And I said, well, first of all, it didn't, because I didn't cover my brother's situation on my show. I've never had the audience give me a hard time until they started hearing things in the media that didn't square with what they had thought. But look,
Wait, but can I say,
Yeah.
whoever said, I don't know who you're talking about, it could have been any of them because they all have the same view, but they're the moral criminals as far as I'm concerned. If someone is going to say, I would sell out my brother because my boss wanted me to, what do you listen to yourself? Like, that's the ultimate betrayal.
Look,
This is an
people
interesting
can
thing.
have their own ethics.
This is a very interesting question. With Tam saying, I disagree. If Pam does something wrong, you call him out on it. Yeah. Okay. So if he was reporting on his brother, he wasn't covering this story with his brother about his brother being investigated when that whole thing was going on. So he wasn't covering it. If he was covering it, then yeah, he has to cover it honestly. There's a conflict of interest in him covering it, which is why it would have been foolish and CNN never made that big a mistake that they had him covering that story. So in the context of he's not covering it, he happens to be a journalist, but he's not covering it, for him to basically help his brother deal with these SA allegations, most of which were not like I said, they were very gross, very disgusting. I'm not trying to find any way of excusing it. They weren't life-altering moments for these women that they, would haunt them forever. Okay, it's not like he was ever. It's not like he was charged with, doing something that a lot of boorish people do. So I'm not trying to excuse what Andrew Cuomo did, because I didn't think it was gross. And if I thought that what Andrew Cuomo did wasn't gross and should be excused, even if it would be unpopular, I would be all too happy to excuse it. I just happen to think that it's gross and disgusting. And especially, he's a married man, he's got a family man. And to treat your underlings that way, it's just terrible. Everything about it was gross, terrible, awful, terrible, 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 terrible. I'm simply saying that, facing the repercussions that he faced, where he became like, basically, the second coming of Donald Trump in the eyes of the left, that's okay. All right. So for him to try to help him navigate those waters, I don't know. Do you guys think that that's really wrong? Should he help him navigate those waters? I'm going to put a poll up on this. Do you guys think that I'm going to put a poll because I'm curious. I'm curious what you guys think about that. Curious what you think. Let me do that now. Should journalists help a relative? Okay, stormy political waters. So let's start a Q&A. I don't know what this means. I'm starting a Q&A and I'm having a poll. Can I do that? What is that? What the hell happened there? They have this thing now, start a Q&A. All right, let's come back here and I'll put this as a poll. All right, there you go.
Fix their own morals, their own standards.
Well, I'm going to judge the crap out of them for
Knock
that.
yourself out. For me, it was more, I got myself into a situation I didn't see coming. And I thought, and my therapist like laughs when I say this. He lived with me all through
Yeah, I
this.
think it's
He's
pretty
been like a
stupid.
life coach to me for a really long time. Great guy in my life. I never say his name because he'll lose all his elevations if anybody knows that he's working with me. But he was like, what do you mean you didn't see this coming? The media was all over your brother. They wanted him to go down. They wanted you to go down. They hated what was happening during the pandemic with you having him on the show and all the admiration you guys were getting. This is a jealous business. And I hear that. I understand it, but I don't want to accept it. And what I have decided was, look, I didn't have any control over how getting fired happened. All I control is what I do next. And I tried to get myself into that place. And that's what made me call you, is that was so hard. It was so hard for me to see all this stuff that I had worked so hard on and I had valued so greatly just vanish. And well, now what am I? And now what do I do? And now is it over for me? Like, is that it? I'll never be number one on a huge platform again. So what am I about? What do I do? Of course, like you, I love my wife. I love my kids. I love my family. I love the family that I choose, my people. I'm there for them. I'm a great friend in crisis. I'm great. I'm not great when things are good, but I'm a great friend in crisis. And I had to really think about things I'd never thought about again before. And I wanted to check in with you about that to see how you were negotiating that space, because it had been so painful. But
He
when I
didn't
met you, and you should.
He didn't report on his brother on this topic. They had during the whole COVID, they had this whole familial back and forth like updates that Andrew would come on the air and the two of them would joke around about Ma, and Ma always loved you best, and that whole thing. But when he was facing when Andrew was facing political turmoil, Chris was not covering it. That was part of what Tucker's point was. So, and I think he was giving him advice on how to deal with the media. So
We should talk about this. You were not the way I was. You were ebullient. You were laughing, and you were, yeah, well, let me tell you, it was a favor to me. And
if Tucker was laughing when he got fired, it probably sounded something like, that Amadeus laugh.
this is going to be okay. I'm going to be fine. This is a weird world. And now I know things I didn't know before.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a real blessing for you. What did you figure out that you didn't know before?
Well, I'll just say, I loved working there. I was there 14 years. They were always nice to me. They never told me what to say. So it's not an attack on them to say that I was hemmed in by the fact that I work for someone else. And that's just the nature of the relationship. No matter how free you think you are, part of you is assessing like, whoa, I actually am an employee. I do have a boss. And I knew that they disagreed with me on a bunch of big topics. And to their great credit, they never tried to change my view on those topics. And I would say that now, even though I'm not there anymore. Good for them. But you aren't fully free if you work for someone else. Like, that's how I felt about it. And I just had reached this time in my life where I feel like there's all these really important things going on. I want to be as honest as I can possibly be at all times. And that was a hindrance to me. So I also had this kind of supernatural sense that everything's gonna be fine. And
he also is independently wealthy, so that kind of helps as well. It's an interesting thing what he's saying here. If you think about it, what he's saying is they gave me freedom to do whatever I wanted, but just the idea of having a boss, that restricted me, which is a really interesting thing. I'll tell you right now, and I can understand it because when my primary source of income was practicing law, I felt as if I had dozens of bosses. and they were my clients. And now I feel as if I have no boss at all, and it's completely different. There's a yoke. Even though, like, when they were my clients, I was the one who had carte blanche pretty much to run things the way I thought, run their litigation the way I felt was most appropriate. And I would order them to, like, I need these documents, I need that documents, I need you on the phone here, I need you to be ready for this. And I would give them instructions, and I knew they were going to listen because they, were hoping that they trusted my strategy as to how to approach different things. But it still felt like having a boss. And I can't tell you the weight that was lifted when I started doing this and was able to make this my career. It's a whole different thing. It's a whole different life. So it's, even when a boss is, the benevolent king type of boss, it's still a boss. It's still a boss. If he brought it up in public and invites the public into the family and dealing with it, he needs work through it within the family. I don't like Chris. I don't like Chris either. I don't like Chris either. I think his integrity is cheesecloth.
That in the end, you die anyway. So what are you afraid of exactly? And I'd also done it for too long, too long, same gig. It's good to be, and I had been fired before a couple of times. So it's good to be fired because it brings you low and you don't become the overbearing asshole that every TV person
90,000 bosses.
Level. I mean, I already am that, but kept it in check a little bit. A little public humiliation is really important for a man. I would recommend it to all men. And so I was very happy from day one, but it was maybe a different time in my life or something. I was ready for it.
Everybody who I reached out to about you said, he's changed. He's different because of this. And when I spoke to you,
it's like, who's interviewing who now?
Recently, not in the beginning, but recently you said, yeah, I'm not that guy anymore. What does that mean for you?
Well, it's just, I mean, I had...
Look at who's asking the questions. It's really funny. It's really became like Chris interviewing Tucker.
I don't think I was playing a role ever. I was definitely used by your former employer and mine, CNN, to flack for the Iraq War, and I allowed that without even really knowing it was happening, and I was always bitter about that in the way that you are when you've done something wrong. In other words, if you fight with your wife and it's 100% her fault, you're not that mad. But if it's really your fault, then you're extra mad because you're mad at yourself. And I've been mad at myself for 20 years over the things that I said and was pushed into saying, promoting the Iraq War, which is totally indefensible in my opinion. Now, so, but other than that, I have always, I think, been myself. But you reach a stage in life where I don't feel like I have anything to prove, and I don't need to be nasty to people. I've done that. I have a PhD in it. You were probably the last person I was really, really nasty to. Sorry.
You got an A in that class, you bastard.
So I don't go into things like I just talk to Putin, and everyone's like, "You got to be rough on Putin." Actually, you're not my boss.
Yeah, but like when you take a client on, you're an audio. When you take a client on, you're taking them on for a handful of days. When I take them on, it's like I'm moving in with them for a couple of years, as an attorney. And then another boss I pick up is whatever judge is handling their case, whatever directions and instructions and orders they issue for me to comply with. So yeah, it's just, there's no end to the number of bosses that attorneys have. I get it for you as a freelancer, but like,
boss, I can do whatever I want. I can go in there and tell Putin, you
can be like, I hate working with you and I'm not going to see you after this week. And that's the end of it. So I guess it depends on the nature of the service industry you're in.
You're a monster. Okay. What do we get out of that? So I can like prove that I'm a tough guy? I don't need to prove that. I'm not insecure about that. I'm tough enough anyway. So that, I just don't have a chip on my shoulder at all about any of that. I just don't care. I've got nothing to hide and nothing to prove. And I just want to hear people talk because I think it's interesting. I think it's important to hear people talk. And so I can kind of pull myself out of it more than I was able to before. If you're 31 and trying to make it in TV, you're itching for a confrontation to show your skills. I can win. And now it's like, I've done that. I'm not interested in that. It's totally pointless. I don't elicit any interesting information. It's all about me and my performance. and I know you know what I'm talking about because you've lived the life, but there's a lot of pressure on you to make a moment. And now I'm just like, I've had a lot of moments. You can look them on YouTube if you want.
So do you feel that when you look at how you used to do it versus how you're doing it now, was it a function of this will work? How much of it was this is how I feel, and how much of it was this will be funny, or this will resonate, this will land, this will get clicks or
No,
likes?
it's not that. No, I mean, I've always been.
Look, to a degree, I'm not going to kid you. Obviously, super chats are an important part of my revenue, but I never present an opinion based on what's going to be popular with super chats. I've joked about how, like, if someone drops a larger super chat, you sort of feel less free to call it out if they say something that's incredibly stupid. But you still will. I'm still gonna. So I guess to a degree that's a boss. But it's a very small degree, because if someone who's a big supporter of this show, ends up being upset with something that I say because they just don't like that opinion, not because I said something like, inappropriate or rude, but I don't sweat that. I don't sweat that. And if it's because I said something rude or inappropriate, in that case, I'll try to take ownership of it. So
Convicted.
An instinct player, 100%. And the only times I've gone really wrong, as with the Iraq War, was when I suppressed my instincts and
You might
joined
be
a
right,
herd. That was
because
really the last
it's called
time.
the Tucker
2002,
Carlson
that I
interview.
Did that.
I don't
Now,
know.
if somebody gives you that answer, you know the follow-up is, what do you mean? You're a big boy. You're a smart guy. You're supposed to be an intellectual. You got duped by people in a newsroom to be
I
for
got
a war?
duped by someone in the Bush administration.
So it wasn't CNN.
It was not CNN, but I was on a show that was inherently partisan, left versus right, Republican versus Democrat.
Yeah.
And the Republicans were in favor of invading Iraq and the Democrats were opposed. Now, of course, it's inverted completely. But at the time, that was so there was, on the one hand, I didn't want to be on the same side as like Barbara Lee of Berkeley. I'm still not on her side on most things. And on the other side, I had these people from the Bush administration saying to me, actually, we have a lot of intel that we can't give you, but it's totally real. And my questions are always the dumbest possible questions. It's like, what does Saddam have to do with 9/11?
Right.
Like, what?
Right.
Like, explain to me so I can understand. They're like, look, we can't really tell you. So I just went along with it. Anyway, it's not that interesting. I think a lot of people did the same, but
It was a big deal, though. Not you.
Yeah,
making
a million people died.
Right. But it was such a big deal because it changed things. One, Congress would never own violence again.
No.
They would never vote. As the Constitution demands,
Oh, yeah.
they gave it to presidents.
Oh,
and
yeah.
right and left. And anyone's going to take the power, right? You're in the power game. You're president. You want to give me power as Congress? I'll take it. And we saw it with Bush. We saw it with Clinton. We saw it with Bush. We saw it with Obama. They all take the power.
But you give up the power, it's like,
you'll never get it back.
you'll never get
And
it
they don't
back.
want it back. They won't even redo the AUMF. So what changed?
Then you're a bitch. I'm sorry.
Well, you can call it
You
that
have
way.
no self-respect.
Again, the benefit of not having a boss. But what changed? The dynamic one was Congress isn't going to own their responsibility anymore. They'll let the executive go with it. And if the president screws up, it's on them. And if it goes well, we all win. Great. Second thing that changed was it started to be okay to give bullshit rationales for military action.
Oh, yeah.
Because 9/11, we went into the wrong country. And everybody was so angry that if you tell me the guy who did it is in there, I'm not asking any other questions.
Oh,
And-
we would have
and we
invaded
didn't.
Italy. Oh, for sure, if they wanted
And
us
if
to.
we had had these, then we would have what we're seeing in the Middle East right now, and what's happening in this country, where people will be like,
I need to pause and share with you some news. So earlier today, they announced that Joe Biden won enough delegates to be the presumptive Democratic Party nominee for the 2024 presidential election. That's what they shared with us. That's what they shared with us a few hours ago. And as of 20 minutes ago, we got these news. Trump wins delegates needed to become GOP's presumptive nominee for third straight election. Donald Trump will lead the GOP in a third consecutive presidential election after clinching the nomination on Tuesday. I'm going to give him for that. You know, this is for you. This is for you, El Presidente. Thank you. I'm going to give him one more. There you go. All hail Donald. All hail Donald. All hail. There you go. There you go. So the delegates are in now after he won Mississippi, Washington, and Georgia. He surpassed the 1,215 delegate threshold, needs to become the presumptive Republican nominee, formally accept the nomination at the RNC convention, in the Republican National Convention in July, by which point he could be in the remarkable position of being both presidential candidate and convicted felon. I don't see that latter part happening, but yeah, there you go. So I'm in a good mood, so I'm going to get, and she said, Google it, it's safe. Me, Brooks, we Jews out in space, we're zooming along, protecting the Hebrew race. We're Jews out in space, trouble appears. Put it right back in its place. When Goyim attack us, we give them smack. I think I heard this song before. I think I've heard it before. I'm sure I'm gonna get slapped if I play it. I'm gonna get slapped with a copyright strike. Mel Brooks has enough connections. I'll probably get hit with the copyright strike. We're Jews out in space. I think it goes like that. Do I play it? Do I play it? I'm gonna end up having to edit. It's gonna be such a pain in the neck. I'm definitely gonna get copyright struck. I know it's gonna be copyright struck. I know it will. But yeah. All right. Everyone's what ends up happening is, depending on the copyright strike, it ends up crashing the stream that no one can see it for like the next 6 hours. It's such a, until I fix it, and then the edit comes in. It's such a pain in the neck, and I know that's gonna be a copyright strike. You just, when you're doing this long enough, you sort of get a feel for which ones are gonna get, which videos I can share, and which ones are almost definitely gonna get copyright strike, and that is gonna get copyright strike. But what I can do is this: I'll play like 10. Oh God, UFC has me once bitten, twice shy. I know it's clean. Now I'm curious if I got the tune right.
C. Jews in space!
Jews are in space. We're zooming along, protecting the Hebrew race. We're Jews.
I'll share the link. I'll share the link on Locals. If I play any more of it, I know everything's gonna come crashing. There you go. Sorry about that. Sorry that was loud. But yeah. Anyhow, I don't know how to mute just YouTube. I would have, but yeah, I'll share the link on Locals. Okay, I'll give it to you on Locals. You'll be able to pull it up. All right. Let's get back into this.
Whoa, what are you doing in Fallujah? What are you doing in Mosul? Wait, where are the bad guys? Who are these people?
Right.
But they didn't have the exposure. So that really was a very formative experience for us. Now,
have you felt it? I mean, you must have felt it over the years. Something big happens.
My
and the team
professional
has
life,
a view.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Look, I am what they call hard to manage. Okay. And that used to bother me. I used to be like, no, I want to be a team player. I'm a team person. I like.
Dude, you got rage issues that would frighten someone. Like you have worse rage issues than some side character in Friday Night Lights. Okay, you have massive, massive, massive rage issues. If you don't believe me, just stumble into the guy and refer to him as Fredo, and you'll see him instantly freak out. Freak out.
Being part of a group, I like that. And I'm not hard to manage. I just want to know why you want me to do what you want me to do. I'll do anything. I'll go anywhere. I'll put myself in any kind of danger if I think it's important for people to understand and I have the ability to go and they don't. I'll go. But I want to know why. I want to know why it's worth it. And, you know, some people, they don't like the questions. Just do what I told you to do, meat puppet. You know, this is your job, is you go where I tell you to go. This is what we're going to do tonight. Stop asking so many questions. I get that. And I get why that would be frustrating for a manager. But now I embrace it. And people who know me know it's coming from a good place. I'm not a diva. I'm not difficult for no reason. I have such a strong sense of purpose. And living through 9/11 taught me such hard, bad lessons about, holy shit, you're supposed to check power. You got this totally wrong. You did not go after these people the way you were supposed to.
I love the he's like, he was.
And you didn't do it for the wrong reasons, which were, one, you were covering it, right? And so, you know, you're kind of into the continuation game. And the American people didn't want you checking it. Do you remember?
Are you speaking of the Patriot Act specifically?
Well, no. Before, when Bush said, hey, stop asking all these questions about the weapons of mass destruction and the yellow cake. You're starting to create bad conditions on the ground for our fighting men and women. And the American people stopped watching the news. And I remember I was at ABC and they stopped watching because it seemed like we were jeopardizing our troops. And it worked. And everybody pulled back on that and just covered the war. And we all went in our embed training and everybody went over there and did it. And I never forgot that. And that's why I'm always chasing members of Congress about something that everybody thinks is a stupid in the weeds issue, which is, hey, why don't you do a vote on this? Why don't you vote on what we're giving Israel? Why don't you vote on what we're giving Ukraine? Why don't you vote on what we just did when the Houthis were attacking us? Why aren't you voting on that? Why didn't you vote on when Trump bombed in Syria? Well, why? That's not a part of America. It's not an immediate interest for us. That's personal to us and our safety. I'm sure it's strategic, but that's not what the War Powers Act is about. That's not what the AUMF is about. That's not what the Constitution's about. And they always brush it off. They always brush it off because that's where we are now. We are stuck in a game that's about nothing but advantage. And I had time to think about all this when I got shit canned and to go back and look at what I had been about and what I had done and what I had not done. And if I were going to come back, because, you know, you're tougher than I am. Not physically, I would literally twist you like a bandit, but you are.
That's a great line. That's a great line. You're tougher than me. I mean, come on. I could break you. I will break you. You can see his insecurity, like the whole steroid thing is a reflection of he's got the same narcissism insecurities of, you know, that he's in as the worst narcissist out there. He's terribly insecure, man.
You had more resilience about this than I did. I still feel like I'm on one knee and getting back up.
Because you're insecure.
And what motivated me to come back was three things. One, my wife told me I had to. Two, you know, she was like, you got to get up and, you know, we got kids, you got to get up, you got to do something with your life that is helping people and making something of this place. That's what we're supposed to be about. You are not about that right now. you're a space rug right now. That's what you are. You're a 230-pound lump on the floor. Get up, do something with your life. Okay. So
was that your response? Okay.
My response was, get away from me and my bottle.
More Casamigos, please.
There's more.
So, look, I can understand that, you know, he was dealing with some issues at the time, as he's clearly describing right here. But yeah, I think that I mean, we can all understand that people go through different struggles sometimes, and you sort of need when you get kicked, you sort of need the wife to sort of snap you out of it and say like, wake up. So you can understand that. But I'm sorry, I think he's a terribly insecure man, and that's part of the reason that he had that reaction to the moment. In other words, when he got kicked in the face, it sort of made all the demons that he's constantly terrified of seem that much more real. If he was actually a secure person, he would have realized, I got plenty of money, I've got plenty of fame, I can find a way to use that fame to climb back up. Henry Ford was once asked, what would you do if you lost all your money? And he said, I'd make it back, because he had genuine confidence. But yeah, when you have a guy who's as insecure as Chris Cuomo over here, that's why even now, while he's climbing back, he still is on one knee, and cucking for the recognition. That's what you're looking at right here, is a guy who's basically cucking for the recognition and hoping that he can feel validated, because his validation comes from others. It's an important life lesson not to find your validation in others. So let's get back to the interview here.
My response was that I was embarrassed, and I knew she was right. But sometimes you know what's right, but you don't have the energy, the will, or the self-confidence or belief to do it. So if I were going to get back into this, because there's such a price for entry. And another thing, I was thinking when I was walking around outside, you got security outside your house. And I was thinking to myself, God, I know what this is about. And your kids are older, lucky for you, but they're still aware, they're still exposed. And I put my family through so much that I didn't understand.
What do you mean?
I was doing at the time, because I
what pause? I don't understand what you mean. What do you mean?
Blinders on. Got to help Andrew. This is wrong. I got to help. I wasn't thinking that my son was having to deal with stuff. My daughter
because you're an insecure narcissist. All you give a damn about was yourself.
Killed me. My wife. So dealing with all those things, and it's fine.
First of all, good for her.
No, they're good kids. They're good kids. They got a good genetic selection. They got a couple of my good genes, and they got mostly their mom. So they're in good shape. But I said, I want to come back. I want to do this, but I know why now. And I'm only doing this job the way I want to do it and what I think matters about it. And if that's not good for my employer, then I'm done. And I have the podcast. I'm building the podcast, my own platform. I'm going to talk to who I want about what I want. I'm going to focus on what I think matters. And I'm not playing the game. I'm only going to expose the game. And the reason that this is wrong is because everything is about silos and sides. And people will say, no, there's a line. And Tucker is and Tucker has crossed that line. And I will say, yeah, says who? Says you in the media who also cast me out? Not the millions of people who want to take it. Well, that makes it even worse. No, it means that you already have a platform. You already are relevant. Why wouldn't I want to understand this person better when you have the reach that you have? Doesn't make any sense, except if you're just playing a stupid game that has rules about who you're supposed to like and who you're not supposed to like. And I'm not going to be that for two reasons. One, it's a stupid game. And two, I lost that game. So I'm not going to advance something that I thought was dirty when it was done to me. And I don't think there's value to the American people. They don't know what to believe because nobody ever shares ideas. And, we can go through different stuff that I say, that you say, because I still want to know why you came after me as much as you did.
Because I'm a dick, probably. Because it was easy. Because I don't like CNN, and I really mean that in my heart of hearts. I really just don't.
But why me?
I don't know.
How can you not?
Because you're Fredo. That's why. Because you're a narcissist. You're an insecure narcissist. That's why. And it came through in every single appearance you ever made.
No, it was so intentional. It was so frequent.
Because people kept sending me videos from Instagram.
It was me.
It was you.
I said the first video, and then he was mesmerized.
What was wrong with me lifting weights? You're an
But I
outdoorsman.
just couldn't. I mean, I was pissed about the COVID thing. That is totally true. I didn't buy any of this from day one.
Oh my God. When he caught COVID, I remember when he caught COVID, they had this whole thing about how he's locked in his own basement, and when he's and his final emergence that he's coming out of the basement for the first time. And it was also obviously staged and fake. And it was like, oh, his family was like, oh my gosh, who is this? We don't recognize you all. What a stupidity they had. Their terrible acting made for TV, as if they hadn't seen him, as if he wasn't eating with them 20 minutes earlier. Now I'm safe, and now I can go and sit with my own family. It was like so stupidly fake, and that's all these from home videos. Yep. It was terrible. It was terrible. It was so transparent.
It was totally real. But that's not what I did. Was not really a pure refutation of your positions on COVID. It was me taking the cheap shots, which I'm not always above. And but you should be. You should be above that.
Did it feel good when you would come after me like
Felt
that?
a little dirty. Felt a little dirty.
Dirty good or dirty?
You know, I'm not really a dirty good guy. You know what I mean? Like,
because you enjoyed it.
That's a question a Cuomo would ask right there. That's your classic Cuomo question right there, right? I mean, that's almost like you can picture Andrew saying that to one of his girls, right? What the hell kind of question is that?
Let me tell you, there was
is
no
a moment
shame in
everyone
your
in the
game.
room. No, like his cameras aren't picking up all the people sitting here. But I mean, in the sense that, you know, I don't want to use any kind of sexual metaphor, but there is one for this. It's like something you shouldn't be doing, but there's kind of the animal thrill of doing something wrong, I guess is what I would say.
You
guilty pleasure.
You loved it, and it worked
But
for
I
you.
will say this,
and
I
my
will say this.
in-laws watch you. Do you know how hard it is to deal with having your in-laws enjoy a joke that makes you want to, do bad things that are going to cost you civil litigation money? And
somebody did say, Chris Cuomo is a lot bigger than you. maybe you should be careful. I just couldn't, I have
How
weaknesses.
cheesy.
I will say I don't
cheesy
have a weakness for
narcissism.
women. I gave up drinking many years ago, but I'm still beset by the weaknesses of the flesh, and one of them is mockery. I just can't help it. And my wife, I will say, who we were just with, is an unusually good person, and would always say, "I don't like it when you're mean. You're not a mean person. You shouldn't be mean." Oh, and I'm very dependent on my wife's approval. Like, I'm totally happy to admit that. And she never criticizes me, but she, in a gentle way, like, "I don't like it when you're mean. That's not who you are." It's kind of who I am. That's the problem.
But I'm watching your stuff now. I watched a lot of your stuff for this, and it's a different vibe, Tucker.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if we had been in more contact
before
you did the Putin interview, I would have told you got to check some boxes with this guy. I get why you're going to say, I'm not going to get there and get into a fight with a guy who may not let me out of the country.
No. I was never afraid. I was afraid of the U.S. government, not of Putin at all.
Of them doing what?
Arresting me when I got back for a sanctions
what?
violation. That's what my lawyers told me. If you go talk to Putin, and if you don't ask him tough questions, the Biden administration very easily arrest you. As a big law firm told me that. A big law firm.
Yeah, you can get, and by the way, face like 20 years for like basically giving aid and comfort. Who knows what the heck they would charge him with? Who knows what the hell they would charge him with? Aid and comfort to the enemy? Who knows what they would say?
One of the biggest law firms.
But how bullshit is that?
I thought it was, and I was like, I don't care. I'm an American citizen. I'm going anyway. But I felt no threat whatsoever. I definitely felt threat.
When the story came out that they had arrested somebody in Russia, that got like no attention. One of the things that you have to know about this guy, which I didn't believe, but now I do because I've been looking around his house like a little snoop. You don't watch TV and you don't pay attention to your social media about what's being said about you.
No.
That's why your hair is so full and so rich in color.
No, I know who I am. I don't need to be told by people.
So
who
you
know
don't
me.
monitor it.
No.
In stark contrast, Chris Cuomo is watching this broadcast right now. Hey, Chris. Complete contrast, because that's what narcissists do.
Not at all.
You don't know unless somebody tells you.
In my old job, I never in my executive producer sitting right there. I never got the ratings ever. I don't want to know the ratings. I wasn't on the email list. I don't do email actually. And so, no, I don't want to know that because
no social media. How am I doing? How's this getting picked up or not? You don't do it.
I don't watch myself on television or on tape or whatever it is. And I don't.
And you don't look at comments.
Well, no. Why would I look? I have a big
Sorry,
family.
Chris.
My, immediate family, which is large. And
It's not me. It's not me. Just, it's my chat. It's not me. I think you're tops. You're aces.
And a large extended family with whom we're very close. And so I immediately get word if I'm doing something that offends them, which is not very often, but I have, and they'll tell me immediately. And so that's what I care about. And I care about, my religious faith. And but why would I care about some commenter? I just don't. And by the way, I think it's really wrong to do that. Why would you give emotional control to a stranger?
It's weakness.
Like, don't do that.
Because we are, well, look, you've gone on your own now, so it's different. The metrics are different. But for a pawn like me, I am somewhat at the mercy of how people decide to feel about me.
But once you self-liberate, or you liberate yourself from the completely irrelevant opinions of partisans and strangers, and focus only on the people in your world who's
actually find
God's
happiness
right in front of you.
That's the only way you can find happiness.
Then you're like completely free, and then it's like, well,
but our business is all about.
But Chris, you're a slave to humanity and their validation of whatever you did 10 minutes ago. That's the slavery you voluntarily chain yourself to, which frankly is a slavery that many Americans chain themselves to. Social media encourages it because they basically say you're worth something if you get a lot of likes, you get a lot of clicks or retweets or whatever, or you build up a strong social media base. So our society basically plays into your narcissism, or whatever inclinations toward narcissism anyone has. That basically it makes you feel validated and rewarded if people are giving hearts to your selfies and things of that nature. And Chris, and that's one of the most damaging elements of social media, because it's breeding that in our teens. If you were already an older person when social media came out, you're much less likely to be affected by it. But when you're a teenager and you're struggling with your own identity and who you are, getting those likes and clicks are so very important to you. And that's, by the way, one of the reasons that culture perhaps today more than ever is more impactful on our youth, and why it is that, for example, these new movements like the trans movement and the validation that they get is such a critical portion to its ability to seep into our culture so quickly, because it's so impactful, getting those likes and clicks and you're stunning and brave and all this other crap that's thrown out there from people who don't know you, don't care about you, will never actually, most of them few if any of them will ever meet you, and that people become dependent on it. And if that's the habits you're forming when you're a teenager, good luck to you 20 years from now. Good luck. At best, you'll be this guy. And how sad is that? Oh, look at this as being a life aspiration. That's what you're aspiring to become. They're hoping that they'll become Chris Cuomo. I mean, just think of how sad that is for humanity.
It's totally incestuous.
But you do better
and
in the
it's dependent
business
on
when-
social media as a proxy of vox populi. They believe that's the people speaking.
Right, but not caring is, as a practical matter, much more effective, because then you don't have any voices in your head other than the ones who matter.
Yeah, until your boss picks up the phone or the comms person picks up the phone and says, we got to clean this up. These people are not happy online because you use the word mouth breather, and it turns out that that's a form of a breathing thing that people are upset about, and you have to apologize.
The sleep apnea lobby.
Or whatever it is. And, you're like, oh, okay. And you look online and it's only 400 people who said this randomized thing, but it now matters.
By the way, I can promise you this. The only reason I care about subscribers, because that channel growth helps. I don't care about people liking what I'm doing. I want to put out content that people enjoy, but there's no individual out there or whatever. And I don't measure my success of a particular show based on how many likes it gets. The only reason I'm always yelling and getting on Rumble about it is because I know that social media platforms, they reward that narcissism and will share my content out more, and enable me to get a greater reach, which ultimately translates into greater success for myself and my family. And that's the only reason I care about it. But if not, I rarely notice how many likes a show gets on either YouTube or Rumble, other than the fact that I'll sort of peek in there on Rumble and sort of prod them to like hit the like button. But the only reason I'm doing that is because that's part of me, like actually taking whatever minimal steps I'm supposed to take in order to help create a larger audience that I can manage to reach. But as far as people like, as far as saying things that I'm hoping people are going to like, I mean, I enjoy being funny. I enjoy getting laughs, but it's not like that's dictating like whether if I end up getting laughs, I'm not a happier person when I lay my head on the pillow at night. I'm not happier because of the laughs. I might be happier that I feel like I'm putting out a better product. But I'll tell you something. Sometimes I'll say things that when I go into like I have like a serious thought, like this analysis about narcissism. I'm like, you know what? I like, or the recognition as to the impact of social media and the likes and clicks and that whole thing that I was just talking about 3 minutes ago. Like that's the sort of thing, like when that thought crosses my mind, then I feel like I express it well. I feel good about that just because I'm constantly reassessing my own performance. But whether or not that gets likes or people like, yeah, right on, or when my thing gets I don't care about that. I don't. I want to put out the best product I can. And when you're constantly competing against yourself, that's a much, much, much healthier way than competing against how many likes yourself got yesterday.
The media has made it matter. Now the Washington Post calls.
So I would always
says people
say
online
to
are upset
them,
at you.
like, if you think you can host a TV show, why don't you? Okay. But actually you're working in the PR shop at some like depressing company. Like you don't know anything. And if you think you're better at my job than I am, why don't you do it? But they can't. And so their whole justification for their sad jobs, at which they're not very good, is to make you feel insecure. And I'm not interested in playing along. Like, why would I care about some 32-year-old, unhappy, unmarried PR person? It's like the single dumbest.
I want to be clear. So yeah, you're right. It is nice to be acknowledged. What I'm saying is I don't pin my own feeling of like I did well or I didn't do well based on how much acknowledgement happens to come at a certain time or other. Sometimes I'll have shows that people really love that I'll be like, really? That one? And other times I'll have shows that I'll be like, wow, that was a really great show. It's a shame so few people saw that one. But it is what it is, and I don't worry about that. Like I said, it's really about competing with myself. And that's for the purposes of just making myself better at this. And ultimately, also, not going to kid you, it's about creating a greater income for myself. That's the more subscribers you have. And the only way you get those subscribers is if people like and share. So that's the only way new people actually gets thrown into the algorithm. So, but, I definitely care about my bottom line. That for sure I do. That's because, I got to feed my family. But, and one day I have to retire. But yeah, as far as feeling good about myself from it, no.
Insecure group in America.
I get
and they're like, oh, you got to do the New York Times Magazine. How about no? Like, no. You know what I mean?
I get it. I get the turning yourself off to criticism, although I think that's harder to do.
Wait, no, not criticism. If my wife looks at me cross-eyed, she'd bring me to my knees.
I'm saying social media criticism.
Yes,
no, it's praise also.
Irrelevant criticism. Why wouldn't you do that?
It's not
it's
just
actually really dangerous not to. It is. I always think it's giving a toddler a handgun. I'm a gun person. I shoot a lot. I'm totally for guns, but not in the hands of people who don't know what they're doing with guns, who are irresponsible, because it's too much power, right? And it will be misused. And the same is true with opinions and letting them in to your head. Keep all of that stuff out and just follow the voice. And the more quiet you are, the clearer the voice is.
I want to talk to you about where that takes you in terms of what you're doing and how it's the same or different for me. But I got to tell you, on one level, now that I know that you are not responsive to the external in terms of social media, the masses, that makes you coming after me as much as you did even worse, by the way, because it's not like you were part of some feedback loop where you were like, man, this is rating. I got to keep doing it.
Like,
it was just you.
It was, and I try never to be passive aggressive. I really pride myself on just aggressive.
Yeah,
and
I'll give you that.
Passive aggressive. I'm a man. Okay, there's no excuse for passive aggression. but in some sense that was, I'm not just saying this to spare your feelings, but I mean it. It was passive.
Spare my feelings.
Well, no,
Spare my feelings.
I'm trying to explain. So it was, I think so little of Jeff Zucker, who I texted immediately when he got fired, though, on principle. But I worked for him, and I just, you don't have to comment, but I really have a low opinion of Jeff Zucker. I don't think he's a good person, and I mean that. And a lot of people up and down management at CNN, I know personally since I spent years there, and I felt very hostile toward them. And to some extent,
I hope they go like around the room at CNN and Fox and tell us their real opinions of them. That would be amazing. I don't know if that happens in this interview. I'm past the part which I got up to on my own. I only made it like 29 minutes in. I would love to see them each like chime in with their real thoughts about Brian Stelter or Don Lemon, all the people who are gone and who were there with them. And all the people at Fox also, Hannity. I would love to hear their comments on it.
it was like my passive aggressive way of I mean, you were the biggest show of, striking out at CNN.
Feel better,
I'll
Rondo.
tell you something. One, and people always say I'm saying this gratuitously, but why would I at this point? Zucker
Good luck.
is
Best of health.
the best maker of television I've ever worked with. And he gave me all the opportunities that put me in a position to succeed. He would not let me go back at you, by the way.
Wow.
He would not let me do it.
Interesting.
He said, one, that's not what we're about here. And where's it going to go? Where's it going to go? You say you want to.
And he'll kick your ass, like on the airwaves and the ratings. And then it's only going to help. It's only going to help Tucker. Tucker's going to win this. You're going to lose.
Be trying to be
Smart.
in the arena to make things better. Now, this is the man who fired me. I have a lot of feelings about that.
I will
and
say
pain.
when one of your coworkers, and I cannot remember his name, but he's a very weird guy who did the media
Brian
show.
Stelter.
Um,
Brian Stelter.
Brian Stelter.
Stelter.
Yes!
Stelter was about to attack my children and called and told.
I don't like Tucker's children. I don't think his children deserve. I mean, think about all the impact that he's having on America.
me that, and I threatened him and called him names and all this stuff, and I called him a very bad word. And he called my employer to complain that I was a sexist because I called him this word.
He's a sexist. How can you allow someone like that in your work environment?
Anyway, it was comical, but upsetting. I didn't want him to attack my kids. So I called Zucker on his cell and I said, one of your guys is about to attack my kids. And he goes, oh, and he shut it down. So here I'm saying I don't like Zucker. I appreciated that.
What the voice tells you to do. I don't disagree that sitting across from Putin and getting into a shouting match or whatever is going to bear much fruit for people. I understand that. And I get that it's a commodity in the media, but I get.
We all, here's the thing I learned about doing impressions, and I still can't figure out how to do it with Trump. The best way to do impressions is you do an impression of someone doing the impression. That's like the easiest way to learn how to do an impression. So yeah, that was Mark Dice right there.
That it may not be the highest good.
Well, it's also just vanity. It's vanity.
Right. I'll give you that. There is an aspect of it. But you made choices. Like you didn't ask him about Navalny. You said, well, all killers, all leaders kill. But don't you feel that if you are going to go and sit with someone like that, you have to hold them to account for things that matter? Like
I did.
The fact that he may have murdered somebody or a lot of people?
Well, the Ukrainians say that he didn't kill Navalny. So I think it's,
Well, who killed him then? Guy looks good 1 minute and the next minute he's dead.
I mean, in some larger sense, the Russian
and what
government.
Ukrainians say they don't.
The
Zelensky says he killed him.
No, he doesn't. No, the Ukrainian government said, no, he died of natural causes. Now, what is actually going on there? I can't even guess. Okay. Navalny died in the middle of the Munich Security Conference, also in the middle of the debate over Ukraine funding in the United States. And his death was within hours used by the president of the United States to justify another $60 billion. So those are just facts. I haven't the faintest idea.
If you're unfamiliar with Navalny, he was a political opponent of Putin who had been incarcerated several times by Putin. Reportedly they had raised trumped up charges against him for fraud or something of that nature. And those charges were left on hold and then raised back up. And then when he left the country and came back, they said that he had basically tried escaping parole and then threw him in prison for a parole violation or whatever it was. And and he basically died in a prison camp, where they said that he caught an illness and died 3 days later. So a lot of people speculate that Alexander Navalny was actually murdered by Putin because he was a political enemy, and not that he died of natural causes. And I think he died in the last couple months or so. So there's all, and Biden did use his death as a basis to say, you see, he's really evil. He's really evil. Come on, man. He's terrible.
Putin put him in prison. Okay, so there's that. So in some
Poisoned
sense,
him.
he's responsible. Look, here's what I learned, and I'm hardly a Russia expert, is this is an extremely complicated political environment, extremely, like next level, okay? These are the people who dominate world chess. And so their politics are incomprehensible to me. So what's actually happening, and I've been in a lot of countries and covered a lot of stuff abroad, and the one thing I've learned is you actually don't really know what's going on. And so I had a bunch of Navalny questions to answer your question in my 4,700 questions that I'd written out. And I decided on the fly not to ask it because I felt like, what about Navalny? Well, whatever he's going to say, I'm not going to move the ball at all. There's a war going on that is resetting the world. I'm not for throwing your political opponents in prison. I hate it. I'm mad that the Biden administration is now doing it. I'm worried about it happening to me. I mean, honestly. I want to get that on the record. So I'm not for that in any sense. I don't choose to live in Russia. I'm not a Putin supporter. But there's a war going.
You see, you're in two different chats. So I just want to show you how different the takes are on Navalny. Here's from Rumble chat. Doc Fat saying there's a video of Navalny with an M16 negotiating a $5 million deal to start an uprising in Russia. And right beneath that in my screen here, which I get them mixed in the two chats together, I have this. Navalny definitely was not an opposition leader. He never won an election. So I think this plays into what Tucker is saying as far as it's so hard to really know what the hell is going on. And we're all just sitting here taking what little facts we do have and trying to piece together what truth is. So that's why I don't know what the story is from Navalny. I don't know.
Going on. And it's crushing the United States economy. And most Americans don't understand that. And I want to talk about that. And so I made that decision.
It's crushing the economy. It's not crushing the war economy, though. A lot of that money winds up coming back
small number
to
of
the
people
uniparty, the corporations
rich. No,
that do
I
that.
totally agree. But
they always find a way to win.
Kicking Russia out of SWIFT, stealing people's stuff, the oligarch stuff, all these people had nothing to do with the invasion of Ukraine. That's not the rules-based order, actually. That's the hardest edged possible politics being played by the US government using the US dollar and the sanctions regimes to do it. What is the message to the rest of the world?
It's an interesting thing that Cuomo just said, by the way. They always find a way to win. It reminds you of the phrase, the house always wins. And it's true. The house always wins. And it doesn't matter which house it is. The house always wins. It's an interesting new twist on the phrase, the house always wins.
Get the hell away from the United States. These people, if they elect somebody who's senile like Biden or someone who doesn't like us, they will use the dollar and sanctions to destroy us. Get away. It's not a safe haven anymore. And so that fact will change world history.
So you're saying it wasn't really a political threat.
We're going to live with that for the rest of our lives. Our grandchildren will live with it. I don't think Americans understand that. And I want them to. And I want to hear what Putin's thinking is. And I don't know if I achieved that or not, but that was definitely, but what I
might be a fair analogy.
Is try to convince other journalists for whhom I have no regard at all, for the most part, that I'm a good person.
But I'll tell you something. I'll respond back to you on this, Derna. Even if Navalny is, if let's assume that your analogy to Curtis Sliwa is a great analogy. Let's assume it's spot on analogy. It's not necessarily just Curtis Sliwa that you're afraid of. It's who Curtis Sliwa is impacting that may become stronger than Curtis Sliwa, right? It's who, and rather than if you silence them, that case, you don't have to worry about them having that influence. It's not just the one guy who's at the top. If people have a fear that they'll be silenced, then maybe you just it has a chilling effect. It's possible. I don't know. I don't
care what they think of me. They call me a Nazi all the time, which I'm not. So like their views are totally immaterial. I just want to focus on what I want to focus on. And if you don't like it, don't watch it. That's kind of my view.
I agree that every time you go into an interview, look,
You hear voices in your head though, like you got to do this, you got to do that.
right.
No, I don't. I can do whatever I want.
The first blush of it was Carlson doesn't get to interview Putin. That I absolutely disagreed with. And in fact, as much as it pained me, I defended that proposition that of course, Tucker Carlson, if he can book Putin, he can interview Putin. That's how it works in our business. If you can get him, you can do the interview. Why Putin chooses Tucker Carlson, what Tucker does with the interview, we'll judge when he does it.
And Chris, since I know you're watching, I would book you. So if you're interested in coming on this show, I'd be happy to have you on. We can talk out, our differences and stuff like that. And I'll certainly be polite. Moscow is its own political machine separate of Putin. What advantage does Putin have in his death, considering he already had him in jail? That's a good point. That's a good point. They could have kept him in jail indefinitely until he was dead of natural causes. That's definitely true. It's a fair point.
It was abroad, and as noted, not kind of obsessively following the coverage of myself. I don't have a Google alert.
They didn't want you to do it because they thought that you would be a stooge for Putin. And then you showed up
They
in
won't
Moscow.
even be here in 5 years. None of
I
these
know,
people,
but you-
John Carl,
but you
and all
made it
these
easy.
people, they'll all be gone.
But you make it easy for them. You show up in Moscow, you say, this is the best place I've ever been in my life. This city is better than anywhere in America.
It is.
Get out of here. On
It's
what basis?
so much better. On the basis that I
There
described.
are people making like no money. That's why the price
It's a fair
is cheap.
point. So, Chris, I'll tell you this: if you agree to come on for an interview, I will abate from calling you Fredo, not just for the interview, but for at least 1 full year, and if you're normal about the whole thing, arguably perhaps forever. So, I will definitely abate in that. I will. Okay, and you just do the interview, no matter how the interview goes. I'll stop for 1 year. I'm calling you Fredo. And if you think I don't keep that promise, understand this. I made a promise during the Patriots comeback against the Falcons that I would never again make fun of Tom Brady if he managed to pull out that win, because I had the box I had that 4-8 box, and I was like, oh man, if you end up leading them to a touchdown here, I will never make fun of you again. And I was chanting Tommy, despite hating him for decades. So, I'll keep my word here.
Yeah. Well, actually, look, I'm no expert on the Russian economy. I can only tell you what I saw, which is a city of 13 million people, much larger than any city we have. Hard to govern a city like that. And there is, no homelessness, no graffiti. It's spotlessly clean. The public spaces are beautiful. The architecture has not been degraded by the oppression of postmodern architecture, which is designed to demoralize and hurt you and destroy your spirit. I believe that because it's true.
You believe that postmodern architecture is designed to kill your spirit?
Of course. What's
Why?
the message of it? Well, look, anything that we make with our hands, it's the purest expression of our creativity. So there's a purpose behind everything that we make. There's a message behind all of it, as there is in all art. You don't paint a painting with no vision behind it. You paint a painting because you're saying something. And so buildings that are warm and human and that elevate the human spirit are pro-human. And brutalism, for example, or the IMP glass boxes that crowd every city in the United States, those are not elevating. What's the message of working in a cube in a room with a synthetic drop ceiling and drywall on the walls and fluorescent lighting ahead of you and no privacy at all? What's the message? The message is really clear. You mean nothing. You are replaceable. You are a widget in a bin awaiting assembly. You're just a cog in a machine. You have no value. And everyone kind of ignores this like, oh, well, that's the way buildings have always been. No, that's not true. And architecture and anything made by human hands is the purest expression of the society that produced it. So we were like, oh, they're handicrafts. No, they're not handicrafts. They're a visible and tangible sign of who you are, not just as a person, but corporately as a society. And if you live in a place that creates nothing beautiful and doesn't provide people uplifting buildings to live and work in, that's a very sick and dark society. And it wasn't always that way. That's the only point I made. Look, Moscow, I'm not moving to Moscow. I'm an American. I'm never leaving. But Moscow is not so different from the cities of the United States in my youth. We had a free society, much freer than we have today. We had much more capitalism, free markets, fewer monopolies.
But you're not saying Moscow is a free society.
I'm saying the United States was a free society.
Okay.
the country that I grew up in had a semi-functioning capitalist system with competition. It wasn't all like 4 companies dominating everything, which is what we have now. That's not capitalism, okay? That's a monopoly economy, which is bad. And you had freedom of speech. I guess there are probably some limits, but I wasn't aware of what they were because they were so broad. And you had safe, for the most part, clean cities. And that's exactly what Moscow is. So again, as I've said, and I really mean it, and I said it to our producers who we were traveling with at the time, this does not make me love Putin. It makes me despise our leaders. And so I say this for Moscow, and Jon Stewart, who is just such a tool of power. It's crazy. He's like, well, you know, fentanyl ODs are the price of freedom. Really? You're going to try and convince me of that? It's like telling women working at Citibank is liberation. No, it's slavery, actually. That's not liberation. Getting to raise your own children is liberation. Getting to do what you want to satisfy the deepest desires of your heart, that's liberation.
Yep.
They've redefined liberation. Liberation is living in some shithole? No, that's slavery. And so I try to make this point. I don't think it's...
Well, Jon Stewart is a tool. I actually got that clip of that. Oh, and speaking of being a tool, he also hit me with copyright strike. I mean, not him personally. It's his powers that he bows down to. But yeah, also copyright strike.
Super subtle or esoteric or complex, but they're like, oh, tool of Putin. No.
Tucker's
are flacking for the indefensible.
Tucker's making phenomenal points here.
That's what's actually happening here.
So for you, it's not Putin's better, Russia's better. It's that it gave you perspective on what you think has changed in America for the worse.
Of course. I look at
It's not how it came across.
I'm sure, and I'm sure it was at least in part due to my inability to explain it fully, which has been a problem all my life. It's incumbent on me to explain things. That's my job. And I don't always succeed. So I'm willing to believe that. But it's also a product of intentional distortion of what I'm saying. And which is, this is an indictment of our leadership class, which deserves to be indicted and imprisoned, in my opinion. And I mean that. So all my views are that. All my views are through an American lens. I've got a big family. I'm not leaving. My family's been here for hundreds of years. I'm not going anywhere. I'm the most American person you've ever met. Don't have another passport, unlike a lot of other people.
No, Tucker would never strike me. I can't even imagine him striking me. I'd be shocked. No, I said Jon Stewart did a clip on Tucker, which I showed here, and I was decimating his attempt to take down Tucker as being ridiculous and stupid, and I got a strike for that. I mean, not a strike. I got a copyright strike. It's not a real strike, but the video is still blocked, I think, because I was like, I'm not even bothering. There was so much that they struck. There was like, sometimes you get a copyright strike and they'll tell you what time periods are an issue. And it was like, you know, they struck like 40 minutes of time that I had them on, even though it was only a 10-minute clip, but all 40 minutes that I'm even talking about it. It was just stupid. It was ridiculous. And they made it like not visible. I was like, I'm not even fighting over the stupidity of him. So, yeah, that's what happened with my YouTube variant of that video. But, because he's a cuck and he works for cucks, so they're afraid of criticism.
And so I'm stuck here by choice and circumstance, and I want my country to be as great as it can possibly be. And that's why I opposed the Ukraine war from day one. This is not going to help us.
I don't know how you got
period. And they're like, oh, tool of Putin. It's like, no.
It could be numbers also. It could be numbers. I don't know. I'm not trying to be like a schmuck. I'm just saying, like, you know what? I can show it to you. If you question if y'all question me, just so you all know that, like, I'm legit here. Here, I'll pull it up. So I'm scrolling through here. So when you see over here the monetization, and you see red, following program, Jon Stewart, blocked. But check out the copyright issue here. See details. Blocked. Daily Show. 11:53. But there's like 14 different things. I already cut out like 15 minutes of it. I just gave up at a certain point. Blocked in all territories. No one can see it. So, see, blocked in all territories. Daily Show. F them.
Tool of America. That's what I want to be.
What about the argument that they make that if you allow Russia to exercise reach, it'll keep doing it?
I would say, show me the evidence. I would say, show me the evidence. The Soviet,
Started in Crimea. Now they're taking
they
at
already,
least half of it.
They had a referendum.
No, they
in
just take your
Crimea
money
where they
for
asked the
use.
overwhelmingly, like 90% Russian population of Crimea, do you want to be part of Ukraine after the coup of 2014, or do you want to be part of Russia? And they said Russia. So that's the democratic process. I would say there.
Right, but you don't change sovereignty over what the popular vote is. Like, you know, like.
Well, it depends how committed to democracy you are. Democracy is the promise of self-government.
But if where we are right now decided it wanted to be its own state, they don't get to just go.
No, because
right? You have a
wouldn't
constitution, you have larger ideals involved.
Sure, but as a matter of principle and practice, if you're committed to democracy, you should let people choose how they seek to be governed. And but the truth is, Ukraine is not a sovereign country and hasn't been since at least 2014, when the West, the CIA, and this has been documented in great detail, staged a coup and with a color revolution and took over their government. And now we know all the details that, you know, we have biolabs and CIA offices, and it's not a sovereign country in any sense. So whatever. I mean, look, I don't even care that much. Do you know what I mean? If
it's heavy stuff, though.
It's very heavy. I mean, of course I care, but I care in the sense that if, you know, Burundi invades Rwanda, which has happened, or Vietnam invades Cambodia, which has also happened, I'm against that because I'm for sovereignty. But what I care about is the country that I live in. I want it to be a sovereign country. It's not. We act at the behest or the demands of other countries. We imperil our own national security on behalf of other countries. That's why we're in NATO. We have a security guarantee with Macedonia. What? I didn't sign up for that. That's not in the Constitution. I want my kids to die for Macedonia? No.
But their rationale is an extension of collective strength. Now, here's the problem. I don't have any problem with you owning any of these opinions that you do.
Well,
I can have my own.
Yeah, but you have to ask yourself, you know, what strength is being added to America by Macedonia? Like, seriously. Like, seriously, what strength?
I can have my own opinion about the level of sufficiency of your reasoning. But
I think you'd find it unimpeachable.
It's that, it's definitely not unimpeachable. But it is that you shouldn't be demonized for it, though. And to flip it.
And I don't know why we would need to add to our collective strength when diversity is our strength.
Because your audience is going to very much want.
I meant that facetiously. Don't quote me.
To understand this. What do you believe personally, or do you believe people believe that I say or report or represent that I shouldn't?
That you?
Yeah, like COVID, for instance. What do I mean to you when it comes to COVID? That
you need to be less insecure. You need to stop being so narcissistic. You seriously need to work on yourself, and then your reporting will come naturally. Seriously, and I'm not trying to be a schmuck about it. I'm being sincere. You need to work on yourself, because your reporting is a reflection of who you are as a person. Looks very confused. Ukraine color revolution. I don't know what the Ukraine color revolution is. But
bothered you about the coverage or the reality or any of it?
I was completely opposed to, from the very first day, the idea that you can restrict people's freedom of movement or force them into taking any medical treatment. And I am strongly, and have been really my whole adult life, opposed to abortion, which I think is killing. It is killing. However, the one abortion slogan I always liked was "My body, my choice." I thought that was a good argument. I don't think it's actually your body, so
it's not a good argument because it's not your choice. If it was your choice, then you'd be able to take meth. So it's not a good argument. If it was true, then you wouldn't. Then seatbelt laws would be unconstitutional. So it's not a good argument. It's not your choice just because it's your body. That's not part of what freedom and liberty is.
So I don't think it's a rational argument if you think it through. But as a slogan, I totally believe this. My body, my choice.
No, it's a stupid argument. It's actually one of the stupidest arguments out there, which people accept. I'm disappointed in Tucker for perpetuating this mythological perspective. It's not your choice. If it's your body, then you can basically jump into a crowd from a 40-story building to kill yourself. No, that would be immoral. So, especially if it have an impact on others, other life forms, which have different DNA than you, then no.
And the "my body, my choice" people are like, actually, no, It's not your body or your choice. It's my body and my choice, and you're going to do this or we're going to hurt you. And I'm just completely opposed to that. And so anybody who seemed to be endorsing it as you did, I was like completely opposed to that.
I think he's trying to be congenial. I think that's what it is. So, yeah, you guys are right. My freeze game is on point. I get a nasalectomy from Chrissy here.
I understand, and I've heard.
I think that's another nickname he doesn't like is
see
Chrissy.
reproductive rights differently, and I do think that it was a very dangerous. Politically, it's an easy analysis of the dog catching the car and getting rid of Roe v. Wade. Now you have it state by state. You have this IVF thing that happens in Alabama. You're going to have a lot of crazy stuff happen now, and women are going to have to pay the price for it. But
no, they're not paying the price for it. They're not paying the price. There's no price they're paying for it. There's a simple solution. Simple solution. Close your legs. Then there's a second simple solution, which is contraceptives. Then there's a third simple solution, which is Plan B. So those are 3 solutions for women who are concerns. 3 solutions.
Where I was coming from on COVID, and I want your take on this. So we're in this emergency situation that I very much believe was real. And I wanted to believe President Trump that this is being hyped and it's going to go away. There's going to be a few dozen cases and we'll be okay. I would have loved for that to have been true. I didn't want people to get sick, let alone me. So then it becomes like a really big thing. And
I was listening to what he said. He was saying that my body, my choice should apply to what people do with respect to how they deal with potential illness. I understood where he was going with it. I'm simply saying that the premise was always wrong, even before and after. So he said that he thought that there was legitimacy to that argument. It was the strongest argument. I'm not saying that he's pro-choice. I don't believe that Tucker is. What I'm saying is I don't believe that even those who are perpetuating pro-choice, that my body, my choice is a sound argument the way he claims it is.
This unusual set of inside eyes, right? Because my brother is running one of the biggest states and dealing with some of the most cases. So
and creating
I'm like
cases
deeper into it probably than anyone else covering it in the country, because I'm watching my brother get
narcissist much
overwhelmed by need in the hospital. That's how I got COVID, was going to visit hospitals.
Your brother being overwhelmed was being hailed by the left as being the leader that we need in 2020. And he literally would plagiarize Trump's speech, whatever speech Trump gave that day. And Trump, he would practically lift day by day, say the same thing 3 hours after Trump said it. And then everyone would hail Cuomo as if he was some genius and deride Trump as being the reason that everyone's dying. So, yeah, I understand it probably was stressful, but no. You should definitely look into Euromaidan and the color revolutions all around the world. Euromaidan is what you probably mean, right? The Maidan revolution. Yeah, he said it was irrational, but a good slogan. I didn't hear him say that part. You're right. If he said it was irrational, I thought he said it was a good. I thought he said, all right, good. You're saying it's a good slogan, even if it's empty and fallacious, I guess. Okay, maybe that's what he was saying. If he said that, I did miss that.
Because I kept hearing these stories about all these dead people all over the place and how there were gurneys flying all, and they were. And then I wound up catching COVID. The government says this is what we have to do. And there are similar practices going on around the world.
I screamed about this an hour and a half ago.
Restriction argument. I totally get the liberty argument. But why was it wrong for me to say, this is what they're telling us to do? And clearly it's imperfect. All of their answers are imperfect. They don't know what's happening right now. This is a first. But isn't that the job? Is that this is what they're saying? Here's their explanation.
Yes,
asking questions about it.
That's part of the job.
But I wasn't like pro-vaccine or pro-mask.
There's no medical advice on this show. YouTube wants me to tell you that I am not a doctor, and these gentlemen here are not doctors, and that you should not be taking medical advice from me or anyone who appears on my show. YouTube wants me to tell you that, and I am. So no medical advice. No medical advice on this show. And I'll tell you right now, You should never take any sort of medical advice from this idiot. Not idiot, Chris. You're not an idiot. I'm just saying from this medically ignorant is the word, Chris. That's what I meant to say. So there you go.
I'm the guy who got busted in the New York Post because I took a run without a mask on, walked back in my lobby, and somebody ratted on me, and then I became a hypocrite.
Well, also because you tried beating up a bicyclist.
I want you to wear a mask, but I'm not. Not when I'm taking a run. I'm coming back into my apartment building. I'm sweaty.
Look, I get it. I didn't wear a mask.
You came after me for that.
At all. I did, and I'll tell you why.
Please.
I didn't wear a mask at all. And that's one attack that I will not walk back because I think it's fair. I didn't wear a mask. And when told to do it on airplanes, I always punched a hole through it. You know,
out of spite?
No, because I couldn't breathe. Otherwise, I can't get the cigarette in there if there's a...
Yeah, that's right.
Just kidding. But no, I quit smoking by then. But I couldn't breathe. And it's not good not to get oxygen. I believe in sunshine and air. My wife and I have not slept with our door closed in, many, many years. No matter what the climate, we sleep with the door open.
Allegan, I went through all the faking basement stuff.
So I believe that, and no one's going to keep me from getting fresh air. Sorry. So, but if it's true that you must wear your mask at all times, then you must wear your mask at all times, whether it's inconvenient or not. Don't go for a run.
It wasn't all times. It was a social distancing thing. And I had been jogging.
But people are getting arrested on the beach alone.
I understand that it went too far. What I didn't understand, I totally get it. And I feel the same way about the vaccine and what was understood and not understood.
Wait, but can I just ask you one question that really was the pivot point for me when I realized these people are liars, and it's my job not to affirm what they say, but to question and to challenge them, no matter what they call me. And they called me a murderer and all that. But when the BLM riots happened and public health officials said, it's okay because fighting systemic racism, which they never defined, despite my requests, is more important than shielding people from COVID. And I'm like, you may think that as a political matter, but as an epidemiological matter, you've just revealed that you're a freaking quack and you don't give a shit about public health because you were just telling me that this is not allowed, except when it's a militia helping you. You're an evil person. That was like my initial, and no one ever explained to me how it's okay to infect people with COVID as long as they're challenging Donald Trump.
I understand the argument. I guess the way I was watching it in real time is, well, they can't control these. If it's a protest, it's one thing, and you can have rules, but do you really want to go arresting your way into a crowd of people who are already outraged by something?
The politicians themselves were telling people to go out. The medical community was saying, well, certain things are more important than this issue we're dealing with, this medical issue. So yeah, no, that's just, this is revisionist history here, where he's trying to give excuses for it. That's none of that excuses how the doctors or politicians acted when BLM started up.
Let alone as if it becomes, I know, but people look, and I don't like that, and I didn't like it then. I never said I did.
If a bunch of Nazis came out in the early summer of 2020.
This is, to me, is a fascinating interview. I know some of you are not enjoying it. I'm telling you right now, it's the reason I'm enjoying this as much as I am is because this is a rare opportunity to see people from different sides of the political aisle really talk about the way things are being covered in ways that are very revealing, and I feel as if I'm learning more by just seeing them engage with each other. I'm very, very much enjoying this. I'm not going to be able to make it all 2 hours through in this sitting. I'll tell you right now. I'm actually thinking I'm probably going to get to like the end of an hour, and I'm probably going to end up finishing this on Locals at goodlogic.locals.com. So I'm probably going to end up finishing like the second hour of this on Locals, but I'm very, very much enjoying this. So I'm probably going to end up finishing this tomorrow afternoon on Locals. I'm just telling you now. And I urge you to follow me over there. And if you're here and you're new, if you could please like and subscribe. And I strongly urging you to do so. Statistically, a third of you who are watching now, there's 2,500 of you who are watching. Statistically, a third of you are not subbed up to me. So if we could remedy that situation and push a little closer to 100,000, I'd be much obliged. And then there's also other people watching over here, and I got 686 of you over here in Rumble. So perhaps I can get more than, I don't know, 3 new subs out of it. That'd be cool. That'd be cool. So if you can do that, I'd be much obliged. I am going to get to like the top of the hour with this. So I'm 52 minutes. I'm going to go like another 8 minutes in here, and then I'm going to basically call it a night at that point. Social distancing 6-foot rule was also found to be not based on any science. Fauci admitted to this. Press is becoming government propaganda. That's what they were playing. That's the role they were playing.
And said, we're Nazis. We're.
I don't think they would go mask arresting, although a lot of those guys do wear masks to hide their identity.
Are you kidding?
I don't
They
think
would
they
get
would.
mowed down. I mean,
I just think it would be too dangerous. And I think they felt the same way.
Well,
but the politicians were promoting BLM. You had AOC and Kamala, and they're pitching out there for these funds, which we're trying to get them released to go back out there, basically not just tacitly giving their approval, but AOC saying, we need to push back. We need to push back. This is so important. We need to push back. There was zero discouragement of, oh my gosh, there's COVID. This shouldn't be happening. As soon as Floyd went down, all the politicians basically who had just basically been screaming, how dare these Michiganders go into Whitmer's office and complain that they want to have a right to work and risk infecting everyone there. And within days of that protest is when Floyd died. And it's like totally fine now because this is what's really important. Your right to work, that's not at all important. But fighting for social justice and fighting systemic racism, which there's no way to ever win that fight because you can always say it. The same way tax the rich is indefinite, so too social justice is indefinite. You'll never achieve it. There's no stated objective that can actually be reached when you just simply say social justice or systemic racism. These are all such amorphous terms that the left loves to use because it just sounds so like it makes you a good person. So everyone wants to latch on to being a good person and get validated from their fellow citizens. So everyone's like, oh yeah, I'm a social justice warrior. So that's it's an easy sell, especially to a young mind that's been devoid of any training in critical analysis, the way our school system has basically set up our youth today. So between all these factors, you can understand why that's being propagating at a ridiculously rapid rate. But you basically have this, crazy. It's crazy that they did nothing to discourage it. When it was no different, the status of the pandemic when the BLM riots started as what it was when the Michiganders were objecting to not being allowed to work.
Drones and automatic weapons, the one thing we know about the people.
But you're not going to shoot these people. You know what I'm saying?
They shot Ashley Babbitt. She was 5'2" and unarmed. And then no one apologized for it.
Tucker, they shot Ashley Babbitt. What was she doing at the time?
She was pushed against a door going into the Senate chamber, but she was killed without warning, and no one ever said, maybe we shouldn't. I'll just start here from my perspective. Don't shoot girls. That's like my rule. You don't commit violence against women, period. I'm the last person apparently in America who thinks that. An unarmed woman should not be shot under any circumstances, unless if she's unarmed and she's 5'2". I think it's totally dishonorable. And to see Joe Scarborough, of all people,
you know what I'm saying about Joe Scarborough. Those of you who don't know what Tucker is saying is that there's all these allegations about that he actually done away with a former secretary of his. So that and a mystery and a murder that remains unsolved. So, by the way, really interesting is my poll here. One of the closest polls I've ever had. Should a journalist help a close relative navigate stormy political waters? It's 53-47. I would love to see us hit 1,000 votes on this. 53-47 right now. People saying yes, that a journalist should help a close relative navigate stormy waters. I'm surprised at at this disparity here. I'm the lack of disparity and how close it is.
Saying that's okay. I'm like, oh.
Look, I mean, so many of these situations are so impossible.
But I'm getting off the track.
No,
sorry.
No, listen, look, no, I think this is the track because the whole point is nobody has these conversations.
Yeah.
No one, now they do in their real lives, People have friends where they don't agree on things. Trump has changed it a little bit. The MAGA stuff changed it a little bit for people. They started being mean to each other in their personal lives. But
Yes, it's like the worst thing that's happened.
you've got to talk like this. Like, do I see it the way you do? No.
I think you do.
Hold on. I don't believe that you should. Shooting unarmed people is a very dicey proposition. I don't make a gender distinction.
Really?
I know too many women who can kick my ass.
You
know what I mean? Like,
I don't think you know.
I don't think he knows any women that could kick his ass. I don't think Chris Cuomo knows. I don't believe that.
That's not true.
I do.
Name one who could kick your ass. So I'm 6'1",
Or you?
was before I had back surgery.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
We're trying to be trying to be real with each other here. You know what I mean?
Well, you're a lot taller than I am. Okay, so I'm just saying. And you're famously a bodybuilder. There's not one woman in America who could kick your ass. It's just not true, and you know it's not true. And you have to say it.
You
to
went
make
to the
unhappy,
UFC
unmarried.
fight. You went to the UFC fight. You think you could get in there with the women who are fighting and come out looking like that?
No, I'm saying you specifically.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
No, he didn't say about himself. He was saying you, Chris Cuomo. I mean, you're jacked beyond belief. Let's face it.
I have a polygraph exam, and I didn't want to have to do this on camera, okay? But if I applied it to you,
I would pass in flying colors because I know how to beat the test. And I can tell you how if you want to know.
Okay.
Why is it people don't like him? You're a journalist who's basically telling you know how to beat a polygraph test. Why do people not like you? It's a mystery. It's just a mystery.
That's why they're not admissible in court.
But can I just ask you, like, you know in your heart you don't actually think there's a single woman.
No, I really do.
What's her name?
I really do. I know. The whole point is that I don't have to know them by person.
Men and women are very different, much more different. You know, we spend all of our time on racial differences. Your race, my race, and there are differences between races. There is no difference between races that's a quarter as profound as the difference between sexes. These are biological differences that are physical, they're psychological, they're hormonal.
Well,
These
that's
are
kind of
profound differences.
But that's kind of the point about drawing racial distinctions is that you're really the same. And obviously,
that's my point.
Biologically, you're different. But what I'm saying,
There's no female boxer who can kick Chris Cuomo's ass. There's no such thing. There's no such thing.
I don't see it as a less than. Can women lift as much weight as men on average? Of course not.
No. I'm making
not just on average. I would venture to say no woman in America could lift as much weight as Chris Cuomo could. Even the biggest bodybuilder. That's the disparity there. 25% added muscle mass. And I mean, I wouldn't say that about Tucker. But I mean, look at the dude. I mean, look at those forearms for crying out loud. His forearms are as big as Tucker's thighs. Obama made it legal to use propaganda against American people using the media. Yep. He's the divider in chief.
the opposite argument.
Divider in chief.
It's not less than. I like women better, and I think that my job, all of our jobs as men.
Look at how he looks at it as it's a less than thing. That's the mindset of a narcissist. See, where he's basically sitting there constantly trying to evaluate. Oh, if you know that that saying something like this is somehow dismissive to women. Women are not supposed to be stronger than men. They're actually referred to as the fairer sex, and it's because they're weaker. Like how is it like? How can you be so devoid of just pretend that you're devoid of basic knowledge? This is so stupid. Like just, oh God, maybe he's just infected. I don't know. Maybe he's just infected by like woke ideology or something. I don't know. I mean, come on.
Is to treat women differently, and better than we treat men. That is the idea. Oh, that's chivalry. Yeah, okay, honey. Good luck in a world without it. And I'm serious. If you got into an argument, and I know you well enough to know, if you're standing in a restaurant, someone's like, "Fuck you, Chris Cuomo," you'd punch him out. If a woman did that,
depends where my cash flow is. I really don't have a lot.
You
of
would
capital
want to.
right now.
You would want to. You're quick with the punches.
I would definitely want to.
I happen to know that. If a woman got way up in your face, you would know exactly.
I wouldn't.
Exactly. So it is a bigger sin, not just against her, but against yourself and your dignity and your responsibility as a man. Your job is to protect women.
I'll give you the gender.
Period.
I don't see it exactly the same way.
Because you don't want to admit it. You're telling me some girl's going to kick your ass, and you know that's not true.
Hold on. There are women who could. Okay, there's no question in my mind. There are all these professional fighters and women who train in self-defense who will beat my ass. I'm a 53-year-old guy.
How many female fighters have gone against male fighters? They're roughly the same.
Very
size.
rare. Although, did you see that girl who just won the high school wrestling championship? That was cool.
It must have been a late. Well, look,
she was in the boy. It was lightweight, but
they're
they
extraordinary
fight
female
women. It's
athletes.
unfair. They by weight and muscle.
But it's
it would
not
be
just
unfair.
It's immoral. It's totally wrong.
I don't know that it's
to
immoral.
use-
If a woman
it's not
feels,
immoral, then why do we have a Violence Against Women's Act?
if the well,
Why do we specify in law that it's worse?
800 votes, 53, 47% saying yes, that a journalist should help a close relative navigate stormy political waters. 47% of you saying no. I think he should. I would say he should. Not reporting on it. If you're going to report, not reporting on it, but I would think, yeah, you should.
Come on, but there's a through line.
Yeah.
You have violence against women because you have a cultural preset of victimizing women and putting them in positions that are inferior. And it was important enough that society decided to punish it extra.
No, it's not it's illegal to be as, fair to women act. It's not the illegal to
Should be.
maybe
You should have that also.
maybe.
Because
But
there's
it's
gender
the
inequality.
violence against
Yeah,
against
because you
women.
have a culture of where men, you know what the rule of thumb is? The rule of thumb comes from British common law.
Okay.
You can beat your wife with anything that's
So,
not
but
thicker than
we're
your thumb.
Actually,
It's a stupid
the
culture.
British Empire is the empire that stopped widow burning in
Right.
India. There was no force for female liberation more powerful than the British Empire ever until the American Empire showed up and inverted it and started telling women true liberation is working for some soulless company that hates you and will pay for your insurance to freeze your eggs so you can put off what you really want to do in life and work for us. That's
Right.
not
Liberation
Like my
is
poll.
choice.
Okay.
Is that you get to make your own
Okay.
choices. People don't make them for you.
well.
Did you just blow off my point?
Well, I did to this extent.
All right, I'm going to pause it here. I'm going to finish this up on locals, goodlogic.locals.com. I'm going to finish up on locals tomorrow, goodlogic.locals.com. It's a fascinating interview. If you're here still, I appreciate if you can like and subscribe. I would be much, much obliged for that. Very, very much obliged. But I want to remain strong for this. I'm 2.5 hours into this thing, and I'm starting to feel like a little more tired. So I'm going to urge you now to please like and subscribe here if you're here, and sign up at goodlogic.locals.com. And with that, I'm going to wish you all a very, very fun to do. Make sure that I didn't miss anything over here. I did. Linkowitz says I can rant, but I'm unable to watch on locals. What's up with that? I don't know. Why can't you just sign up on locals? Just sign up on locals. I don't know why you can't. I don't. It should work for you. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything over here. I did. Lola Brand says, okay, Joe, your diggers will always validate your participation trophy. Thank you so much. And Big Poop says, one of these days I'll be positioned to drop a $50 or $100 super chat. And when that happens, if what I say is stupid, I want you to be frankly honest. If I don't value your opinion, why would I even engage? Fair enough. I'll be honest. I'll just be like a little bit softer. That's just the nature of the beast. All right, my friends. That's my show. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back, God willing, tomorrow. I'm hoping that by tomorrow we actually have a decision from Judge McAfee, and if so, that would be fire, no matter how it goes, but hopefully it goes well. He's supposed to come within the next 3 days. It's coming down the pike. So make sure you like and subscribe over here. Follow me over at goodlogic.locals.com for the rest of this interview, which is, I'm very much enjoying this interview. I'm really looking forward to seeing the second half of this with you. So that's going to be on locals, goodlogic.locals.com. Stay happy, which means no matter what you do, do not eat the bugs. And as always, my friends, I say to you, thank you so much for joining me. Good night and Godspeed.